say fight back!
Hey, over at ThomHartmann.com, we've got some really cool stuff. A lot of people don't realize that we produce a daily newsletter, and Sue puts we call it Sue's Daily Stack on there, which is literally a link to every story that I've talked about in the show. So all the research is right there. It's free. We don't share or sell our subscriber list. It's there's just it's there. It's there for you. And it's over at ThomHartmann.com. You can sign up for the free newsletter. You also can get my big picture take of the day, which is exclusively over at our website at ThomHartmann.com, as well as links to our videos, the book reports we typically do every day, all this stuff and more. It's all there at ThomHartmann.com. So check it out and sign up for our newsletter. I think you'll really enjoy it and appreciate it and find a lot of value there. We put a lot of work into this stuff. And you'll find it all right there on our website at ThomHartmann.com. And be sure to check out the newsletter and sign up for it. It's great. Thank you so much. We have a $20,000 match for the day. So whatever you give today will be doubled. If you give $100, it becomes $200. If you give $500, it becomes $1,000, at least for Free Speech TV purposes. And if you give $10, it becomes $20. And really, there's two ways that you can support Free Speech TV. One way is by calling and saying, hey, here's $100, or here's $50, or here's $12, whatever you can afford. The other is to call them up and say, I'd like to become a monthly sustaining member. I would like to support Free Speech TV every single month on a regular and ongoing basis. And so here's my credit card number, and ding me a certain number of dollars every month. $5, $10, $15, $20, $25. $100 if you can handle it, but whatever is comfortable for you. But literally $5 or $10 every month, knowing that this is going to come in for the next year or two, is very easy for those of us who donate to groups like Free Speech TV, and extraordinarily useful for Free Speech TV, in as much as that they can then do budgeting going forward. They can know what's coming in. So these are the two options. If you're giving on a monthly basis, and you make your gift today, let's say it's $10 a month for, just put me on as a sustaining member, that $10 becomes $20, but then you'd only see a $10 charge, and then you'll see $10 charges going forward. But only the $10 would be matched. But in any case, as far as I understand it, but in any case, those are the options to keep Free Speech TV going, and thank you so much for considering that. Free Speech TV is just a really great resource for all of us here. And if you happen to be watching this part of our Free Speech TV program on Facebook Live or on YouTube, just a heads up that Free Speech TV is here. If you didn't know about it, it's on Dish Network, it's on DirecTV, on the two big satellite networks. They've got their own channel. Just look for Free Speech TV. And it's also on the internet at freespeech.org. So there's a lot of options there. With a $20 gift, you get the Free Speech TV flag lapel pin. Yes, you too can have a flag lapel pin. With a $60 gift, you get the Free Speech TV set of stickers. This is the 6-sticker design pack. With a $72 gift, you get an autographed copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. It just became available for pre-order on some of the websites, so you can read about it, and you can read the description of it and the blurbs and things if you want over on Amazon or Book of Barnes & Noble, whatever. But it doesn't ship yet. It's not available. You can pre-order it in those places, but you can also pre-order it by making a $72 contribution to Free Speech TV right now, and you'll get an autographed copy. And you'll also probably get it before you'll get it if you buy it on one of the online sites. We're hoping to get some, early print books that we can get out for this thing. But it won't come until, the release date is, I think, June 7th. So it'll be in that neighborhood, plus or minus a week or so of that. With a $100 gift, you get the Free Speech TV t-shirt with the viewer design. With a $200 gift, the Free Speech TV hoodie. With a $360 gift, all of the above. And keep in mind, whatever gift level you're giving, it's going to be doubled today for Free Speech TV by these very generous donors or this very generous donor. With a $500 gift, Louise and I have put together another webinar, this one on resolving fear, anxiety, stress, and trauma. Using, how to get through some of these troubled times using, modern techniques and some that go back as far as Franz Anton Mesmer. I mean, there's a lot of great techniques that I've written about in some of my books, but this is going to be a much deeper dive. That's with a $500 gift for an hour-long webinar. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland here, hang out with us in the studio for the last hour of the show, and we'll go have lunch together. And that would be great fun. I look forward to it. I always enjoy it when we have people in the studio and who are our Free Speech TV major donors and often learn things. Sometimes bring those things onto the show that I've learned about. So Free Speech TV, needs your help. We're running way behind on our fundraising drive from previous years, from just a year ago. I'm not sure how much of that is because some people have shifted to monthly gifts. If that's the case, thank you. Or if that's because people just can't deal with, or people are overwhelmed by, getting an email every day from I get them from Donald Trump. You're probably getting them from politicians that you'd rather donate to, or other websites or other, media venues or whatever. But that's what's going on out there. The number 877-378-8669. All contributions up to $20,000 are matched today. So today is match day. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Don't forget, with that $72 gift, you'll get a copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, which is literally not even out yet. You'll get it as soon as it's available. 877-378-8669. Thank you so much.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. Thom Hartmann here with you. Donald Trump flying back from Vietnam now after his meeting, after basically giving the store away to Kim, and then this is just so tragically incompetent. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Michael Cohen hearings as we continue through the program today. But yesterday typically was Middays with Mark, our first hour, or sometimes our second hour of our program, where Congressman Mark Pocan comes on and takes your calls for the hour. And we bumped that by the agreement of both parties here for the Cohen hearings, which I thought were just history making. So today, it's Middays with Mark. Right now, Congressman Mark Pocan, the co-chair, along with Pramila Jayapal of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, is on the line with us. His website, pocan.house.gov. You can tweet him at Rep. Mark Pocan, and he represents Wisconsin's 2nd District. Congressman, welcome back to the program.
Oh, hey, Tom. Thanks so much. Glad to be here.
So your take on, and by the way, to our listeners, if you have a question for Congressman Pocan, if you want to lobby, suggest legislation, things like that, whatever it may be, 202-808-9925 is our telephone number. He's here for the hour to take your calls. Congressman, I'm curious, A, your take on what happened yesterday, and B, I mean, there's so much going on in Congress. What are, in your opinion, the things that are really important that we should be paying attention to?
Yeah, this was a really busy week. So, on Tuesday we passed a measure to try to override the emergency declaration by the president, the fake emergency declaration. Yesterday we had the Michael Cohen hearing, which I think everyone around the country was watching. But in middle of all that, the new Medicare for All bill was introduced with 107 co-sponsors, the best, most comprehensive Medicare for All bill ever introduced into Congress. There's a large number of different groups already supporting it on its introduction. And then between yesterday and today, we just passed two strong gun violence prevention measures. It just shows, again, what November's elections meant. We're moving. We're doing things in the right direction. We're doing checks and balances on the Trump administration. We're putting progressive policy forward, and we're passing legislation on the floor of Congress. That's extraordinary.
That's extraordinary. And your thoughts on the hearings yesterday?
Wow. I'll tell you. Michael Cohen is definitely not a choir boy, right? We all know that. But this is who Donald Trump surrounds himself with, right? People who have kind of sketchy professional backgrounds. And
he's basically a mob lawyer, isn't he? I mean, that's how he came across. He even talks like one, like I'm a wise guy.
And yet, all these people around him have been indicted, and he's the one who told us he brought in the very best people. I mean, because, again, the very best people don't work for a guy like Donald Trump in business or in the White House. And I think it was very telling and nothing surprising in what he said. I mean, some of the things I've heard leadership say they have heard Donald Trump say or how he acts were totally represented by what Michael Cohen said. So it just kind of reinforced that I think he gave honest testimony, maybe in a little bit of a gangster style, but, it sounds like Donald Trump ran his businesses a little bit like a gangster. So, but I thought it was telling for the American people to see all that.
Yeah, it really is, and it's really extraordinary. So let's pick up some phone calls here and get going with Middays with Mark, Thursday edition here today. Jared in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. You're on the air with Congressman Mark Pocan.
Hello, Tom, and hello, Congressman Pocan. Boy, what a crazy week. You have this Cohen testimony. You have the Trump talks in Hanoi with Kim Jong-un. You have this potential spark of World War III with India and Pakistan, and which isn't even getting any media coverage at all in corporate media. And that's kind of what I'm calling about. Congressman Pocan, there's a paradox with nuclear weapons. On the one hand, we haven't had a world war since nuclear weapons were invented. And in a lot of ways, it kind of, if we didn't have nuclear weapons, I predict we would have seen a third world war, which probably would have killed billions of people by this point. The question is, is there any way we can push for a global UN treaty that will dramatically reduce nuclear weapons, these stockpiles of nuclear weapons around the world? And I'm not just talking about India or Pakistan or North Korea or anything like that, because I generally think that if they didn't have nuclear weapons, we'd be seeing bloodbaths all around, but a gradual reduction, including in the United States and Russia, and I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm not sure if I necessarily agree with the idea that it's nuclear weapons is right. We haven't had some of the interactions, negative interactions around the world, but I do totally agree that whatever we can do to try to take up some of that supply that's out there would put us in a better place. And unfortunately, the president just signed off of an old treaty. And I personally think, when you look at the military-industrial complex, this is one great profit center that's out there. This is an area maybe Donald Trump has figured out how to make a nickel. But I worry about the direction of this administration and some of the people he's bringing back into foreign policy and what that means for the planet. So I would love to see a much more aggressive stance, getting rid of nuclear weapons across the globe. I think we should be doing that. But I think the direction under this administration has been just the opposite.
Steve in Albuquerque, New Mexico. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Yes, hi, Mark. Thanks again for helping us out with information that's going on in the White House. I have a question that I asked you about last year, and I never heard any recent information concerning the right-to-work laws that they were going to, well, they were similar to right-to-work laws where they're going to try to make them efficient in every state. Has that gone through?
There were some, I think, measures talked about by the Department of Labor. Nothing has progressed to that point. And I believe there's a piece of legislation that definitely will never pass, especially with Democrats in control in the House, that would have gone more to a right-to-work state. I'm forgetting the person who introduced it to offhand. I just can't think of that. But The good news is, again, the consequences of November's elections is no way will anything legislatively ever move forward through the House of Representatives that would be advancing right to work. In fact, the bill that Bernie Sanders and I have around collective bargaining and other union issues includes a repeal of the state laws around right to work, because Wisconsin was one of the most recent to do that, and it had a lot of negative effects on people's wages. And even the contractors didn't want it. In fact, the contractor coalition was over 400 contractors that said, we don't want this. It wasn't the private sector that asked for it. It was Scott Walker in one of his final days of trying to prove he's a relevant Republican doing that. So I don't think you'll see it happen out of Congress. Will the White House try something? It's a little harder because we can still try to do some roadblocks. I think there could be potential lawsuits depending how they try to do it. But, I would argue what we need to do right now, especially with the presidential election coming up, is talk about ways to make it so that workers are more empowered, have more of a voice in their workplace, and how to really lift people's wages and benefits by getting back to things like collective bargaining rights and unionization.
I'm writing a book right now on voting rights in the United States and the history of voting, and was going through the 1956 election, the Eisenhower election, re-election, and a couple days ago. And one of the arguments that he was making for his re-election, one of the legislative calls for action that he was calling for, was a significant rewrite of Taft-Hartley. He said it was too aggressive or draconian. I forget the word he used, but that basically it was damaging unions in the states that had gone right to work, and he wanted to dial that back. Of course, it never happened. But I mean, this is a Republican president, right? Democrats and union leaders. I've had this conversation with the heads of half a dozen major unions. Are all we're all saying we should have repealed Taft-Hartley. It was passed over Truman's veto. Is there any effort to actually repeal Taft-Hartley or to significantly rewrite it, perhaps even along the lines that Eisenhower was talking about?
Yeah. No, not offhand. I think when it comes to labor law, most of our focus has been trying to make sure there's been so much slippage since the Obama administration on labor law and labor rules. Unfortunately, in my opinion, Barack Obama waited till the last couple of years to do a lot of really good, strong labor law changes via the rules process through the agency to make it better for workers. But because of the way it happened so late, Donald Trump was able to overturn some of those, so we weren't able to move forward on overtime pay and some other issues that really needed it. So we've really been focused a lot on around the agency, and now with the secretary under a lot of controversy, I'm not sure if they'll be able to move too effectively forward on negative legislation. That's
right. Alex Azar is the labor secretary. He's the guy who let Jeffrey Epstein off on the whole child exploitation thing, right?
Yeah, and the Congressional Progressive Caucus, Pamela Jayapal and I have asked for him to resign.
Yeah, great, good on you. We'll be right back. It's Middays with Mark with Congressman Mark Pocan, Thursday edition.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Congressman Pocan's website, pocan.house.gov. You can tweet him at Rep. Mark Pocan. He's the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. And welcome back. Veronica in Chapel, is it Chapel or Chappell, Nebraska?
Chapel.
Chapel. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Yes. Thank you both for all you do. How does Medicare for All affect workman's comp?
I don't know offhand. What are you asking?
Well, I do know that when I got past workman's comp from 9385 in Oregon, that I had to go on SSD and SSI. So Social Security is picking up for workman's comp.
Wouldn't Congressman, wouldn't Medicare for All render workman's comp unnecessary?
Well, I mean, that's the idea, right? You'd have Medicare as the basis of health care for everyone across the country, but you'd have expanded Medicare. I mean, what we've done in this bill, for example, has included things like vision and dental and mental health. We've included long-term care in here. So actually, it's even more inclusive than the current Medicare package. But I would assume that, that Medicare would be taking care of much of what you might be raising as a concern that wouldn't be there otherwise.
Yeah. Barbara in Camden, South Carolina. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan. Thanks for watching Free Speech TV.
Hi. Tom, I love your show. And
Thank you, Barbara.
Senator Pocan, I have a question. For the Medicare for All, do you actually think that since the Senate is, the majority is Republican, do you actually think anything will get done on that? I hate to be Debbie Downer, but it just seemed like really the Congress can't get anything done because of the Senate.
Barbara, I don't disagree. There are many things we're not going to be able to get through the Senate or the White House. But in about a year and a half, we're going to have an election where we can flip the Senate and the White House. So I think there's a reason why all the major 2020 presidential candidates are talking about Medicare for All, and why we've put a bill with a lot of organizational support that was never there before, and why we're laying out the meat on the bones so that we are in a position to make this real if we are successful in 2020. But, do I expect Mitch McConnell to take this up in the Senate? No. But right now I've got some work to do with even some of my Democrats on this. So we're doing polling and focus groups. We're building organizational support. We're building support among the presidential candidates. So this will be a reality someday. But I don't anticipate Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump to be signing this into law.
And really, this is how we got, women's suffrage. In addition to massive, more than a century-long, activism, but repeated legislative attempts. It's how we got Social Security. It's how we got the 8-hour workday. It's how we got the 40-hour week. It's how we got so many things. They got shot down time after time after time, and we just kept coming back, isn't it?
Yeah, when I was a state legislator, I had a bill, compassionate care for rape victims, to make sure that every hospital in the state of Wisconsin offered information about and access to emergency contraception for someone who's been raped, so that they wouldn't have a child. And 40% of the hospitals weren't offering it. It took me 4 sessions. I finally got it done with a Republican majority, but it took a lot of years. But that's how you get things like this done.
That's right. Just keep pushing that rock up the hill, or something. Not to make a total Sisyphus allegory or whatever metaphor, because I don't think he was successful. But eventually, we'll get that rock down to the top of the hill and over. Congressman Mark Pocan with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It's Middays with Mark, Thursday edition. Congressman Mark Pocan taking your calls for the hour. Bill in St. Paul, Minnesota, listening on AM 950. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Good day, everyone. I love your show. I'm pro-union, but to back up a little bit to the point I'm trying to make, which is an observation, many years ago there was this communist fear tactic rubbish about a domino theory. One country falls and the rest are going to go. But the real domino effect based on a domino theory is when Reagan busted the air traffic controllers and opened the floodgates for all sorts of union busting, and that's why union membership is way down today. There's your real domino theory, and I'll take your return observation off the air. Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah, Bill, I'm with you. When we had the highest rates of unionization in the 50s and 60s, we had the least amount of income discrepancy, and people had some of the highest real wages in the workplace. And now we're down so much, but there was an organized effort, and no question, it was during the Reagan era by that air traffic controller situation and others that they started their work to dismantle unions. And even in Wisconsin, when we had our uprising, which was supposedly over a small amount of discrepancy in the budget, Scott Walker used that as justification to bust the unions. So this has been a very organized political effort by conservatives and Republicans to take away the power from working people for a very, very long time. And I would argue any 2020 candidate that's going to get any love from me is going to have a really strong stance when it comes to working people, because to me, the most core fundamental. Most people don't live and breathe politics like Tom, all of your listeners, but most people are just worried about getting by for their family. Can they afford their mortgage or rent? Do they have health insurance? Can they take a family vacation? Do they maybe have that little luxury of a camper, a snowmobile, a boat, something? That's the middle class existence, and you get that when you have stronger unions in this country, and that helps everyone when lifting wages. So I think it's a real important point you brought up, Bill.
Inez in Villa Rica, Georgia. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Love your show.
Thank you.
Congressman, with Michael Cohen's testimony yesterday, which I listened to, are we any closer to impeaching Trump and Pence?
Great question.
I'm going to take the Trump part, not the Pence part. How's that? Because I think Pence is another issue. But every day that we're closer to having more hearings that bring out more information, every day we're closer to the Mueller report coming out, which for some people is going to be a necessary step to have. We're getting closer to, I think, finding out what exactly this president and his administration is really about. Many of us have voted for impeachment on the floor already because we think there are plenty of impeachable offenses that are out there. But don't forget, we're going to need Republican votes as well to actually pass impeachment. So we need to build the case and build the case and build the case. And there is also a small amount that the Mueller report looked at, and there's a whole lot else that we're now having hearings about, getting more information about. So I think it was a step forward, and we're going to keep getting information about this White House. But again, like I said, I was not surprised by almost anything I heard him say because we've heard it before. Just hearing it that up front and close and personal from one of the people that he's hired, I think was really powerful and hopefully helps us in moving a more just approach towards dealing with this White House forward.
Patsy, listening to KPFK in Woodland Hills, California. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. Can you hear me?
Just fine.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, thank you for taking my call. My question is about Medicare for all. And the biggest obstacle, I think, when I'm talking to people about why it's necessary and why we need to do it, is that they don't understand how it's going to be paid for. And I keep hearing from the Democratic Party about why we need it and that they're going to support it and blah, blah, blah. But what I don't hear is a basic, like layperson's 30-second kind of elevator pitch about how it's going to be paid for. So I'm wondering how the Democratic Party is going to approach that or is approaching that.
Yeah, Patsy, that is an awesome question. And one of the major reasons why we have a bill right now introduced is so we can get a CBO score, right, which is the official kind of government scoring of what they're estimating a cost to be. I think Tom and I could give you a lot of reasons why we think this is going to lower the cost of health care by getting rid of profits and overhead and some of the profits, overhead, administrative costs, and other things that are associated with health care right now, how it's a savings to employers, and that will help stimulate the economy because money will go to other aspects of business growth. But we need to see those numbers to be able to have that. I would also argue, as the Progressive Caucus has, we think the military budget is bloated. There could be reductions there. There's a high-speed financial transaction fee that would bring in $1 trillion a year, although, Tom, this is new news. They're raising the rate on that this year. Peter DeFazio, who's got the bill, used to be Keith Ellison's, and I think it's going to raise $3 trillion a year now in revenue, and something the European Union already does. There are plenty of ways to do it that are not going to affect middle-class taxpayers one bit at all. You don't need to, and I would argue there's cost savings. So you'll have more of that information very, very soon, Patsy. That's why we introduced the bill.
And that stat tax on stock trades is something we had in the United States from the 1935 to 1964, too, didn't we?
Yeah, and this is the high-speed one. So this is really just affecting those people buying multiple buys per second and things. The European Union has it in place.
Just computerized gambling.
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Middays with Mark. Congressman Mark Pocan, co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, taking your calls for the hour. We'll be right back. Thank you so much. We have a $20,000 match for the day. So whatever you give today will be doubled. If you give $100, it becomes $200. If you give $500, it becomes $1,000, at least for free speech TV purposes. And if you give $10, it becomes $20. And really, there's two ways that you can support free speech TV. One way is by calling and saying, "Hey, here's $100, or here's $50, or here's $12." Whatever you can afford. The other is to call them up and say, "I'd like to become a monthly sustaining member. I would like to support free speech TV every single month on a regular and ongoing basis. And so here's my credit card number, and ding me a certain number of dollars every month. $5, $10, $15, $20, $25, $100 if you can handle it. But whatever is comfortable for you. But literally $5 or $10 every month, knowing that this is going to come in for the next year or two, is very easy for those of us who donate to groups like Free Speech TV, and extraordinarily useful for Free Speech TV in as much as that they can then do budgeting going forward. They can know what's coming in. So these are the two options. If you're giving on a monthly basis, and you make your gift today, let's say it's $10 a month for, just put me on as a sustaining member, that $10 becomes $20, but then you'd only see a $10 charge, and then you'll see $10 charges going forward. But only the $10 would be matched. But in any case, as far as I understand it, but in any case, those are the options to keep Free Speech TV going. And thank you so much for considering that. Free Speech TV is just a really great resource for all of us here. And if you happen to be watching this part of our Free Speech TV program on Facebook Live or on YouTube, just a heads up that Free Speech TV is here. If you didn't know about it, it's on Dish Network, it's on DirecTV, on the two big satellite networks. They've got their own channel. Just look for Free Speech TV, and it's also on the internet at freespeech.org. So there's a lot of options there. With a $20 gift, you get the Free Speech TV flag lapel pin. Yes, you too can have a flag lapel pin. With a $60 gift, you get the Free Speech TV set of stickers. This is the 6-sticker design pack. With a $72 gift, you get an autographed copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. It just became available for pre-order on some of the websites, so you can read about it, and you can read the description of it and the blurbs and things if you want over on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, whatever. But it doesn't ship yet. It's not available. You can pre-order it in those places, but you can also pre-order it by making a $72 contribution to Free Speech TV right now, and you'll get an autographed copy. And you'll also probably get it before you'll get it if you buy it on one of the online sites. We're hoping to get some, early print books that we can get out for this thing. But it won't come until, the release date is, I think, June 7th. So it'll be in that neighborhood, plus or minus a week or so of that. With a $100 gift, you get the Free Speech TV t-shirt with a viewer design. With a $200 gift, the Free Speech TV hoodie. With a $360 gift, all of the above. And keep in mind, whatever gift level you're giving, it's going to be doubled today for Free Speech TV by these very generous donors or this very generous donor. With a $500 gift, Louise and I have put together another webinar, this one on resolving fear, anxiety, stress, and trauma, using, how to get through some of these troubled times using, modern techniques and some that go back as far as Franz Anton Mesmer. I mean, there's a lot of great techniques that I've written about in some of my books, but this is going to be a much deeper dive. That's with a $500 gift for an hour-long webinar. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland here, hang out with us in the studio for the last hour of the show, and we'll go have lunch together. And that would be great fun. I look forward to it. I always enjoy it when we have people in the studio and who are our Free Speech TV major donors and often learn things. Sometimes bring those things onto the show that I've learned about. So Free Speech TV, needs your help. We're running way behind on our fundraising drive from previous years, from just a year ago. I'm not sure how much of that is because some people have shifted to monthly gifts. If that's the case, thank you. Or if that's because people just can't deal with, or people are overwhelmed by, getting an email every day from I get them from Donald Trump. You're probably getting them from politicians that you'd rather donate to, or other websites or other, media venues or whatever. But that's what's going on out there. The number 877-378-8669. All contributions up to $20,000 are matched today. So today is match day. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Don't forget, with that $72 gift, you'll get a copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, which is literally not even out yet. You'll get it as soon as it's available. 877-378-8669. Thank you so much.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Welcome back. It's Middays with Mark, Thursday edition. Congressman Mark Pocan taking your calls for the hour. Laura in Hazel Park, Michigan. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hi, Congressman Pocan. I've been sitting there for a minute, and you answered a lot of the questions, but I think that the one thing I was concerned with was right now we have a flood of votes going through Congress. It's just a floodgate. We know that it basically lays out the vision for what you have for the country, and in hopes that we can, in the future, get these passed. The question I have is how many of these bills will go through as easily once we have control over the Senate and the White House when they're no longer a safe vote?
Yeah, a great question, Laura, and I'm glad you're witnessing what we're trying to do, right, is we're trying to put a lot of different things out there that we promised, that we ran on in November, we're putting out there. And while a cynical part of me could say, one could argue it would be more difficult to get some of these things through if you had Democrats at all levels, the pragmatist in me says if I have people voting for it now, it's awful hard to not vote for it again in the future. So the more people we rack up the votes for on these issues, the easier it will be for us to get these done when you have a Democratic president and hopefully a Democratic Senate. So I'm a believer in what's happening right now. I think it's important to show what the differences are between the two parties to put these ideas out there. But I'm even more happy that every time I get someone on a recorded vote on something, they're not likely to change in the future. So the more votes that we do get, I think it's going to put us in a better position for 2020 to pass this type of legislation.
Danny in Tell City, Indiana. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Mr. Pocan, I pay $122.70. $133.50 for a 20% supplement plan, $135.50 for Part B Medicare. And I was wondering if the new Medicare law is going to be Medicare for 100% as opposed to 80% that it is now.
Yeah, so I know that Pramila Jayapal is the lead author on it, and it just formally was put out yesterday. But last night we were at a event together, and she was talking about some aspects of it. And she said that there are no copays whatsoever with it, because the whole idea is you want to get healthy, right? We don't want people having to wait till they have money to get health care. So I think it is likely to be more comprehensive because we are covering, don't forget, dental and vision and mental health, and we're covering long-term care, and we're covering more things. So I think you're going to find it to be far more inclusive. But I'm very familiar with what you're talking about now, where unfortunately people can't get the full coverage under the full plan. And if I can, Tom, just make a quick pitch also. Lloyd Doggett from Texas has got a bill to allow us to negotiate for prescription drug prices with the pharmaceutical companies. We have a majority of the Democrats in the House are on that bill now, and we are really, as a caucus, fighting for that bill as well to be put out there while we're talking about prescription drug prices this session. We think it's integral that we are dealing with prescription drugs for Medicare no different than we do with the veterans or for Medicaid, because there's huge cost savings. So that's another bill I think that's real important, and that one could very likely get a vote this session.
And at the same time, there's this new group that has just committed millions and millions of dollars. Here it is. It's called American Action Network, they're targeting 46 Republican House lawmakers and 11 Republican senators with millions of dollars worth of mail, print, and digital campaign ads that say, and I quote, "Government interference will limit seniors' choices in Medicare Part D. Liberal politicians are pushing harder than ever to bring government bureaucrats between seniors and their doctors with plans that would restrict access to medicines in the Medicare Part D program. We encourage seniors to call their members of Congress and tell them to keep fighting bureaucratic interference in Medicare Part D." In other words, don't let the government negotiate drug prices for Medicare Part D. Your rebuttal to that, and were you aware that this was happening?
No, I wasn't aware of that, but we've seen plenty of other pushback here, Tom. We know that the industry has been trying to convince some lawmakers to look at an arbitration process that affects only a few drugs a year, but I don't think that's what the American people want. There's no reason for us not to treat Medicare the same as Medicaid and veterans, how we are able to negotiate for prices. When this happened, I listened to Tammy Baldwin, who's my U.S. senator, who's a strong progressive, told the story at the press conference of they remember that night when they were up late in the night when that vote happened that took away the ability to do this. And I think it was Billy Towson who then left Congress and took $1 million a year job with the pharmaceutical.
$2 million a year.
$2 million a year. There you go.
He was on this program afterwards.
Yeah. So, this is the problem, right? This is an industry that is gross and disgusting in how they operate in this town. And I think they will do everything they can to stop it. The good news is we know the public is like 92% with us on this issue, and we are going to use all our efforts to make people feel pain if they're not with us. So we're going to push hard on this because it should be a no-brainer.
David in Naugatuck, Connecticut. Am I saying that right, David? You're on watching us on YouTube? You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hi, Congressman Pocan. Thank you for serving in the Congress. I applaud you for co-sponsoring the Medicare for All bill. When the bill was first passed in can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, when the bill was first passed in 1968, there was a provision to train doctors, and that provision was capped in 1997 by the Clinton administration. It's been capped at $10.1 billion. There's currently 30 million uninsured, or 50 million if you count underinsured. Are there any movements or provisions or thinking that the spending for graduate education for doctors should be expanded, and also we should have more lenient standards in more medical schools, as well as procedures to processes to import doctors? I mean, Dean Baker wrote in his book that lawyers and doctors are hidden. The rest of us all have to train, have to compete against outsourcing or insourcing of professionals. Thank you.
Yeah, so David, I don't know if there's anything specifically in the bill on this. I know that there have been a number of measures, and we have people come by our office on a regular basis trying to expand the options to have more people enter the medical profession and get the training because of the caps that you mentioned. I know in states like Wisconsin, where you have a lot of rural areas, we have a real sometimes problem in getting physicians to go to some of those more rural areas. Otherwise, people have to drive hours to go see a doctor because of the economics of it all, and we would like to see that change. We know if you do your internship in a rural area, you're likely to stay in a rural area. So there are other measures like that. I can't tell you where necessarily they'll be in this Congress, but there certainly are other measures to try to address those issues.
Steve in Genoa City, Wisconsin. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hi, Congressman Pocan. I live in the 1 CD, so have pity on me. Since Citizens United stands in the face of campaign finance law, and all politicians need to collect vast sums of money because TV, radio, and internet paid political announcements are so expensive, as we, meaning all the people, own the airwaves and other frequencies, why don't we just pass a law that says no paid political announcement can cost more than $5 or $10 a piece? That way, nobody has to collect a lot of money.
Yes, Steve, I don't know if that'd be constitutional to do that first. I think that could be a factor. But you raise a great point, and I think let me say two things about it. One, H.R. 1, which is the first bill introduced by the Democrats in Congress, is dealing with campaign finance, election, and ethics reform. We expect that will be on the floor in the next week or two We marked it up, I believe, in a committee this week, or maybe it was the week before. But we're moving on this, and I couldn't agree with you more. Money is not free speech, and corporations are not people. That's my philosophy. The other thing I want to mention is, in addition to H.R. 1 going to be moving, and then we'll break it up into pieces and also send that to the Senate, the good news is, of the new class of Congress, 36 of the incoming freshmen took a pledge not to take corporate money. And, previously I think there were 5 in Congress. Right now I think there were 6 maybe of us who are incumbents joining those 36. Suddenly you're up to 42 members in the House of Representatives. That's 10% of Congress. When you have 10% of Congress not taking corporate money, you are going to start changing the face of how this place works. So that's part of what inspired me. I had taken it, not that I got tremendous amounts because I vote the way I vote, but the good news is when I decided, not to take it, I did it because I was inspired by all these new folks. We have a chance to have a new movement and change how this city works. And what's so interesting, Tom, you'll really love this. I had a business lobbyist tell me that they were afraid they were going to start having a hard time getting meetings with members of Congress. So equating money and meetings, which is already basically illegal to do, but secondly, their solution was that we haven't raised the limits for a while, so we should double the PAC limits, and that might be the answer to the problem.
Oh, jeez.
Which is so crazy. So the good news is there's some real movement on this, Steve, and I think H.R. 1 will be one of those things to watch.
Marvelous. Congressman Mark Pocan is with us for the hour, taking your calls. It's Middays with Mark, Thursday edition here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Bumping it back a day so we could all listen to Michael Cohen laying out his specific allegations of crimes of the sitting president of the United States. Shocking stuff. Anyhow, we'll be back with your calls for Congressman Pocan in just a moment.
Listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Congressman Pocan is the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. His website, pocan.house.gov. You can tweet him at Rep. Mark Pocan. And welcome back. Maverick in Edmonds, Washington. You are on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Well, good morning / afternoon to both of you. I've got a health care question. I got hit by a car on Christmas, and I'm still at home with no income, recovering. And it's kind of a two-part thing. I think we need to have something to help people who are hurt pay their bills while they're convalescing. Also, my main question for Congressman is, wouldn't it be better, or why don't we copy a functioning healthcare system from another country in the world? There's probably over 30 or maybe 40 to choose from, rather than kind of keep putting this patchwork together of the system that we have.
Yeah, so Maverick, great question, and I think that's what we're trying to do with Medicare for All, right? It is a system that already exists in this country that works really well, is a very popular program. So taking that and really its tweaks are what we're doing, but to an existing program is a great way to deliver health care, and that's what we're trying to accomplish. But, I talked to a reporter on my way over after votes this morning, and, they offered a question a little bit about this. And, the bottom line is Canada is not a third-world country. Most of Europe is not full of third-world nations. I mean, this is something that works in democracies very well across the globe. You could take someone's plan and try to retrofit it to the United States, but I think this really is the best option. Since Medicare worked so well for so many people already, this is, I think, the best way to try to see it entering the marketplace and the world, or at least our country, in the best and easiest way.
And Robert Ball, the guy who actually wrote the legislation for Lyndon Johnson's on the record as saying they fully expected within a decade it would have been extended to everyone, and that's why they wrote it the way they did.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's another plug for it. Jerry in Grand Rapids, listening on 102.5 FM. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan. I got about a minute and a half to the break, Jerry. A quick one.
Okay, thank you. Well, I just wanted to make a quick comment about unions and what has really been lost. It's the classic unions that ran the apprenticeship programs, provided trade schools, and had a whole culture of manufacturing who understood what needed to be done. And we've lost so much. Simple things like lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, measure it twice, cut once. I know those things all sound kind of silly, but to The technocrats don't have the ability to understand the intrinsic value of those, and it's really difficult out there. And the problem with the unions now is they see the people who are in positions of power and authority don't care enough to spend the money, so they don't care enough to put forward the effort. Leadership has to come by example, and we're not seeing that. Thank you.
Yeah, Jerry, I think I would answer your question in this way. I agree with you. Registered apprenticeship programs are one of the best ways to provide training out there. That's exactly what most unions are doing, who are providing some skill training. And I've seen some amazing programs around the country. I visit a lot of these up in the Twin Cities in St. Paul. My union, the Painters and Allied Trades Union, because I'm a union member for 3 decades, has a program that's actually it's registered as a community college in the training that they're providing, the higher skill training. About 30% of the people will get a 4-year degree, but what about everyone else who wants to get a good wage and high skills? And I think that model of the registered apprenticeships, specifically the ones that unions do in conjunction with management, is one of the best ways to get that training.
We're talking with Congressman Mark Pocan, the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, taking your calls for the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Middays with Mark, Thursday edition. You can check out his website at pocan.house.gov. You can tweet him at @RepMarkPocan. He represents the 2nd District of Wisconsin in the U.S. House of Representatives. We'll be right back.
I think I would answer your question in this way. I agree with you. Registered apprenticeship programs are one of the best ways. Registered apprenticeship.
Welcome back. It's Middays with Mark, Thursday edition of the Thom Hartmann Program. And in Zion, Illinois, listening to WCPT, is it Dynasty or Dynasty?
Just Dynasty. I follow you on Twitter all the time. I just had a quick question for Mark Pocan. What is your take on reparations, in specific for African Americans? The reason I ask that because it seems like when the talk is coming up now, it's a lot of people like Senator Warren who are attaching other groups to it. When we paid out reparations for Japanese, Jewish, there's no other groups attached to it. So I just want to know your stance.
Yeah, Dynasty, thank you for that. And I grew up just across the state line from Zion, Illinois, and Kenosha. So I've been to Zion many times growing up. Honestly, I have not. I've heard Senator Warren mention her most recent proposal, and I have not seen any of it. There have not been a lot of concrete proposals in Congress previous in my first 6 years around reparations. So I would have to take a look at them. I just don't have a great answer for you right now, Dynasty, other than I'd like to see what people are proposing and hear their arguments, and especially what Senator Warren put out there, because I think once a presidential candidate mentions an issue, it enters a new realm of discussion, and I think that means all of us will be talking about it.
John in Cumberland, Maryland. Hey, John, what's on you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Thanks, Tom. Hi, Congressman. I want to thank you for your service as a progressive in Congress. Really appreciate it. My question has to do with the Iran nuclear deal. And I believe that the greatest benefit from the deal was a safeguard against AIPAC, neocons, and Trump stampeding us into a bogus war with Iran based on lies that could have been challenged and deflated by the cadre of inspectors enforcing the treaty. I'm afraid Trump is going to get us into a war on the threshold of the election or before. Why aren't we hearing a word from Congress, the news, or even anti-war activists about this essential purpose of the treaty?
Yeah, so John, maybe it's not getting out in mainstream media, but it's definitely talked about here. I mean, a lot of us were whipping that vote. We were very proud to get that put in place so that we could quit having this stupid, unending fight with Iran that some really want us to continue to have, right? The whole fight that we're doing in Yemen right now and the resolution that we passed in the House and the Senate trying to stop U.S. involvement is because they're still saying Iran is a proxy somehow. I mean, that fight has got us into a lot of other issues that we don't need to ever be in. So it's certainly talked about. I certainly think the reasons were not about Iran not complying, but more about trying to make Iran the boogeyman again, because fear works well for Republicans and conservatives, and especially for some who want to make Iran in that region the boogeyman again, because it works for their narrative about international issues. But it is get talked about around here, and it was an issue that had a lot of passion from our Democratic leadership when we passed it as well.
Ron in Sophia, North Carolina, watching Free Speech TV. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Good day, gentlemen. I have a question about possible future enemies, like Russian and Chinese oligarchs buying up, possible corporations buying up American land. Is that something we should be concerned about?
Ron, I'm going to chalk that up. I haven't thought about it a lot. I generally try not to think of, I guess enemies maybe in maybe I should be about future enemies, but I don't know if it would be. I haven't seen at least a huge movement, and I could be wrong, of outside countries coming in buying American corporations or buying land here. I have been concerned about the amount of debt that gets bought by countries like China and what that could mean if they decide all at once to take that money in. I think that does affect our diplomatic and trade and other relations. But I don't know offhand if I have a valid concern around oligarchs in China or Russia and their purchases, and if that's going to cause a problem down the road.
I would strongly encourage you to ask somebody on your staff to look into the percentage of both commercial and private real estate on the West Coast owned by Chinese investors, especially, and on the East Coast, particularly luxury land owned by oligarchs from former Soviet states and Russia.
Oh, okay.
It's consequential. Rosemary in Boise, Idaho, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Yeah, good morning, Congressman. I have a quick question. I'm on a fixed widow's income. Haven't been able to afford Medicare because, I'm helping my daughter with several things. I've accrued 3 years of fines, so I can't afford, excuse me, to purchase it even more now. So what happens to those fines if Medicare does get accepted?
Do you mean the Medicare for All proposal if it would pass?
Yes, I do, yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to worry about that because everyone would have Medicare. There wouldn't be a lead-in period or anything else. It would be the law of the land. That would be the healthcare delivery system, if I'm understanding your question correctly.
Andrew in Vancouver, Washington. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan. And we have a minute and a half to the end of the hour.
Okay, good afternoon. My question is pretty simple. With 60% or a little bit more of the student loans headed into default and it being such an issue, why is there never a bill passed to lower the interest rate? Because most of them are 6% or higher. We could lower that to 1% and then subsequently give the people that have the loans the opportunity to pay it back instead of accruing $4,000 to $5,000 or more a year worth of interest, which continues to raise the principal. I'll take my answer offline.
Great question, Andrew. I think you very likely will see something pass out of the House this year about refinancing of student debt. I was the first person in the country to introduce a bill on this in 2013. Later, Elizabeth Warren and Senator Gillibrand each introduced their own bills. But this is something that, when you're the second biggest amount of consumer debt that's out there, you've got to be able to address. Also, there are some people actually looking at getting rid of higher education debt, and I think you may see some proposals around that as well. But I guarantee you'll have a vote around refinancing student debt in this Congress.
Congressman, we got about 20 seconds to the end of the hour. Thoughts about the upcoming week?
Whew, I don't even know what our major bill is up for next week, Tom. This was a week. We were very busy keeping going, but I know H.R. 1 will be coming up and equal pay or pay equity will be coming up in the next couple weeks. So those are a couple things to look for the Democrats. Look for Donald Trump to come back from his overseas trip and spin whatever he is going to claim he's going to spin, although it looks like it was a giant, colossal waste of time.
Yeah, remarkable. Thanks again for being with us every week, Congressman. Thanks so much for being here today.
Absolutely, Tom. Thank you. Again, appreciate it.
Thank you. Congressman Mark Pocan, pocan.house.gov, and is his website. You can tweet him at Rep. Mark Pocan. He's the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. We'll be back. We're going to dig into some of the stuff that Michael Cohen was talking about yesterday in the next hour and get your calls and thoughts on that as well. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
Say fight back!
Hey, over at ThomHartmann.com, we've got some really cool stuff. A lot of people don't realize that we produce a daily newsletter, and Sue puts we call it Sue's Daily Stack on there, which is literally a link to every story that I've talked about in the show. So all the research is right there. It's free. We don't share or sell our subscriber list. It's there's just it's there. It's there for you. And it's over at ThomHartmann.com. You can sign up for the free newsletter. You also can get my big picture take of the day, which is exclusively over at our website at ThomHartmann.com, as well as links to our videos, the book reports we typically do every day, all this stuff and more. It's all there at ThomHartmann.com. So check it out and sign up for our newsletter. I think you'll really enjoy it and appreciate it and find a lot of value there. We put a lot of work into this stuff. And you'll find it all right there on our website at ThomHartmann.com. And be sure to check out the newsletter and sign up for it. It's great. Thank you so much. We have a $20,000 match for the day. So whatever you give today will be doubled. If you give $100, it becomes $200. If you give $500, it becomes $1,000, at least for Free Speech TV purposes. And if you give $10, it becomes $20. And really, there's two ways that you can support Free Speech TV. One way is by calling and saying, hey, here's $100, or here's $50, or here's $12, whatever you can afford. The other is to call them up and say, I'd like to become a monthly sustaining member. I would like to support Free Speech TV every single month on a regular and ongoing basis. And so here's my credit card number, and ding me a certain number of dollars every month, $5, $10, $15, $20, $25. $100 if you can handle it, but whatever is comfortable for you. But literally $5 or $10 every month, knowing that this is going to come in for the next year or two, is very easy for those of us who donate to groups like Free Speech TV, and extraordinarily useful for Free Speech TV in as much as that they can then do budgeting going forward. They can know what's coming in. So these are the two options. If you're giving on a monthly basis, and you make your gift today, let's say it's $10 a month for, just put me on as a sustaining member, that $10 becomes $20, but then you'd only see a $10 charge, and then you'll see $10 charges going forward. But only the $10 would be matched. But in any case, as far as I understand it, but in any case, those are the options to keep Free Speech TV going. And thank you so much for considering that. Free Speech TV is just a really great resource for all of us here. And if you happen to be watching this part of our Free Speech TV program on Facebook Live or on YouTube, just a heads up that Free Speech TV is here. If you didn't know about it, it's on Dish Network. It's on DirecTV on the two big satellite networks. They've got their own channel. Just look for Free Speech TV. And it's also on the internet at freespeech.org. So there's a lot of options there. With a $20 gift, you get the Free Speech TV flag lapel pin. Yes, you too can have a flag lapel pin. With a $60 gift, you get the Free Speech TV set of stickers. This is the 6-sticker design pack. With a $72 gift, you get an autographed copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. It just became available for pre-order on some of the websites, so you can read about it and you can read the description of it and the blurbs and things if you want over on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, whatever. But it doesn't ship yet. It's not available. You can pre-order it in those places, but you can also pre-order it by making a $72 contribution to Free Speech TV right now, and you'll get an autographed copy And you'll also probably get it before you'll get it if you buy it on one of the online sites. We're hoping to get some, early print books that we can get out for this thing. But it won't come until, the release date is, I think, June 7th. So it'll be in that neighborhood, plus or minus a week or so of that. With a $100 gift, you get the Free Speech TV t-shirt with the viewer design. With a $200 gift, the Free Speech TV hoodie. With a $360 gift, all of the above. And keep in mind, whatever gift level you're giving, it's going to be doubled today for Free Speech TV by these very generous donors or this very generous donor. With a $500 gift, Louise and I have put together another webinar, this one on resolving fear, anxiety, stress, and trauma. Using, how to get through some of these troubled times using, modern techniques and some that go back as far as Franz Anton Mesmer. I mean, there's a lot of great techniques that I've written about in some of my books, but this is going to be a much deeper dive. That's with a $500 gift for an hour-long webinar. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland here, hang out with us in the studio for the last hour of the show, and we'll go have lunch together. And that would be great fun. I look forward to it. I always enjoy it when we have people in the studio and, who are our Free Speech TV major donors and often learn things, sometimes bring those things onto the show that I've learned about. So Free Speech TV, needs your help. We're running way behind on our fundraising drive from previous years, from just a year ago. I'm not sure how much of that is because some people have shifted to monthly gifts. If that's the case, thank you. Or if that's because people just can't deal with, or people are overwhelmed by, getting an email every day from I get them from Donald Trump. You're probably getting them from politicians that you'd rather donate to, or other websites or other, media venues or whatever. But that's what's going on out there. The number 877-378-8669. All contributions up to $20,000 are matched today. So today is match day. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Don't forget, with that $72 gift, you'll get a copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, which is literally not even out yet. You'll get it as soon as it's available. 877-378-8669. Thank you so much.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Roche Wagner.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. There were a number of very troubling things yesterday. Thank you, sure. And the hour that we just spent with Congressman Mark Pocan taking your calls was absolutely fascinating. And we started out by talking about Michael Cohen's testimony yesterday. I'd like to toss the lines open for your thoughts on a couple of specific. I mean, generally you can talk about pretty much anything you want with regard to Michael Cohen, but just a couple of specific issues around all this. Thugocracy. I'm not sure this is a word or if I'm inventing a word, but it seems like thugocracy is the new model for nations, right? It's been elevated from a few obscure little countries all the way to the United States of America, where we have a thug in the White House right now. And even Matt Gaetz, the Republican congressman who tried to stare down Michael Cohen yesterday and tweeted to him that his wife would not be faithful to him while he was in prison, and then yesterday was overheard talking to Trump in Hanoi, saying, "Yeah, I'm glad I was able to do it for you." I mean, these guys are thugs. And Michael Cohen said yesterday that Trump was not joking when he said he could kill people, and on top of that if he did kill somebody on Fifth Avenue, his supporters would stand with him, that this was not a joke. Well, actually, Trump has already done that. He's already killed people. His so-called zero tolerance policy has already killed two little children, a 7-year-old boy and an 8-year-old girl, as I recall. And the Jerry Falwells of the world still support him. His stuck in Fox News land acolytes still support him. Cohen said that Trump supporters, in addition, would start a second U.S. Civil War. We'll get to both of those in just a second. Thugs all over the world have been doing this for a long time. And now we have the President of the United States, who has spent 2 years praising specifically these thugs and sucking up to them, leaders of countries that have been progressively moving away from democracy and toward oligarchy, oligarchy and autocracy, strongmen, Bashir, Kim, Duterte, Putin, Bolsonaro, suggesting to these people, Trump telling these people that they should continue with campaigns, terror campaigns in some cases, against their own people, their destruction of the free press, anything left of democracy in their regions. Of all the reasons to impeach this mob boss in the White House, Donald Trump, this, in my opinion, is the strongest. The United States, we need to step back from the edge of being a thugocracy. And that begins with nullifying the corrupted election of 2016, in my humble opinion. Here's Michael Cohen talking about how he thinks that if Donald Trump loses the election in 2020, he will not leave office peacefully. Now, keep in mind, the last time we had a concern like this was in the election of 1800, when Jefferson won over John Adams, and Adams had just passed the Alien Sedition Acts and was literally throwing people in prison for criticizing him in the newspapers and shutting down newspapers. I mean, John Adams was moving us in that direction. And Jefferson won the election, and there was a serious concern. This is why it was referred to as the American Revolution of 1800. In fact, Dan Sisson wrote a book, and I contributed to it, of that title. There was a serious concern. And is Michael Cohen saying that, is there something like that? Well, listen, check this out.
Given my experience working for Mr. Trump, I fear that if he loses the election in 2020, that there will never be a peaceful transition of power. And this is...
that's scary, serious stuff. Coming from a guy, and he goes on to say, this is based on, having worked with this guy, known this guy for a decade. He's characterizing Donald Trump as somebody who is not like a mob boss, is a mob boss. Somebody who destroys other people and delights in it. Somebody who rules with fear. Somebody who gets everybody around him to lie for him every single day. And he's now, Trump himself lying, a dozen times or more a day, every single day. And now he's got the entire Republican Party doing it. And, and Cohen also, talking about, Trump said he could kill people. He actually it was not a metaphor. Here it goes.
And when Mr. Trump turned around early in the campaign and said, I can shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and get away with it, I want to be very clear. He's not joking. He's telling you the truth. He said, you don't know him. I do.
Don't know him. I do. He could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and get away with it. And Trump didn't just say he'd get away with it. He said that his supporters would continue to support him. I mean, how can this not be a thugocracy? And what do we do with this? I mean, obviously a call for impeachment, but, that's going to be a heavy lift. You're going to have 2/3 of the senators agree to impeach Donald Trump, which means that the Republicans are going to have to, well, who knows? I mean, a lot's going to depend, I suppose, on what is found in these hearings. And apropos of that, it's not one of the other points that Michael Cohen made yesterday was that it's not just Donald Trump. It's the Trump crime family. It's Donald, it's Ivanka, it's Jared, it's Don Jr., and Eric. And presumably Eric's wife, Laura, who does, a lot of the PR for the Trump administration, runs her own little TV show on the internet for him. And now you've got, Ivanka coming out on Fox News talking to Steve Hilton, Fox host, about the Green New Deal. And the Green New Deal has basically a guarantee of a job in it. If you can't get a job in the private sector, the government will put you to work. Well, that's what the New Deal did. That was the core of the New Deal. If you can't find a job, the government will be the employer of last resort. And Ivanka Trump says, I think that this idea of a guaranteed minimum is not something most people want. They want the ability to be able to secure a job. They want the ability to live in a country where there's a potential for upward mobility. You know, Elizabeth Spears is writing about this over at the Washington Post today. The headline, Ivanka Trump doesn't understand work no one in the Trump administration does. The obvious consequences of putting people who are born rich in charge of the government. The simple fact of the matter is that Ivanka Trump is living on money that she inherited from her grandfather through her father. 3 generations of inherited wealth, or 2 generations of inherited wealth, 3 generations of wealth, and she's lecturing us on how we all would really rather just be out there, just thrown out into the labor market and you know, just pedal as fast as you can and get whatever you can, and you know, that sort of thing. This is what's going on. This is the Republican Party now. It's the party of this extraordinary elite snobbery of people born to extraordinary wealth, looking down their nose at us and lecturing us on how, well, you know, health care? How am I supposed to pay for that? I'm a billionaire. You want to raise my taxes? I'm not going to put up with that. You think you should deserve health care? Come on, health care is not a right, it's a privilege. A job is not a right, it's a privilege. Housing, clothing, food, those are privileges. You have to work for those, and you won't work for those unless you're scared and hungry and starving, because that's the billionaire credo, is you got to scare the crap out of average working people, or else they won't do whatever the billionaire tells them to do. I should say right-wing billionaire. I realize there's some very good left-wing billionaires out there, but you get what I'm saying. The conservatives, let's say. Meanwhile, I get an email from Donald Trump and another one today. And I guess he's writing emails while he's flying home from you know, kissing Kim Jong-un's butt. But Dane Winkler called me out on this on Twitter. This is great. And I got the same email. Dane's said friend. Mine says Fred. Fred, liberal mega donors with their endless bank accounts are already maxing out to 2020 Democrats. If we want to keep the White House in 2020, we have to reach our critical, all caps, February end of month goal to keep pace. We don't have liberal mega donors like Michael Bloomberg, George Soros, or Jeff Bezos fueling our campaign. We have something better. We have Fred from Oregon, Jessica from Ohio, Stacy from Wisconsin, and thousands of other American patriots who support our incredible movement with small dollar donations. We're currently $340,178 short of our critical February end of month goal, and we need you to contribute any amount you can to help put us over the top. Today, together, American patriots are much more powerful than the liberal mega donors. Please make your critical end of month contribution of any amount before 11:59 p.m. tonight, and it will be triple matched. Okay, so we have Fred from Oregon. I swear to God, it's not me. I had to tweet back to what's his name, Dane, saying, you know, it's not me. I swear. I sent him $5 4 years ago. He's still begging for money from me, and probably everybody else on his list. Anyhow, do you think that there's going to be a peaceful transition if Donald Trump loses the 2020 election? Do you think it's actually possible that he could even call out to his well-armed right-wing militia buddies and say, time for a civil war? I mean, have we gotten to that? Is that even possible?
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
I mean, keep in mind, this is what Tim McVeigh actually thought he was doing, was kicking this off. I'm very concerned about this. And welcome back. Get over to my call screen. Susan, watching Free Speech TV in Bellingham, Washington. Hey, Susan, what's on your mind today?
Well, Tom, I haven't talked to you in a long time, but I got in the queue today. I liked the man who testified yesterday. I feel he's an honest person. I especially like the ending when the man who ran the, the Democratic man. Who
Right,
ran
Elijah Cummings.
Yes.
That brought me to tears.
Yes. Well, it almost got him to tears. That's what I felt, Tom. And I hope we can get rid of Bush before the next.
Yeah, you mean
election.
Trump, yes.
Trump, yes.
Yeah.
Because I'm ill at this point and almost 80, and he drives me wild.
Well, hang in there, Susan.
I will.
We need.
Oh, if you could send me, or you could put somebody on the phone who would send me that thing, because I don't go on the internet anymore.
Okay, that
I'm watching
thing.
you on
What,
free speech.
Sure, what thing are you talking about?
The daily thing that explains everything.
Oh, our newsletter?
Yeah.
The only way that we can deliver that to somebody is by email, so you would have to have an email account, Susan. We send out a daily newsletter that lists every single article, links to every single thing, every single news story I talked about, if that's what you're talking about.
But at almost 80 in my disease, I'm just not using the internet. I did.
I'm very sorry, Susan, but if you have, a friend, neighbor, a relative, somebody who comes by periodically who can, subscribe themselves, and then they could print it out and bring it to you. But that's about the best I can do. Susan, I need to move along.
That sounds okay.
That sounds okay? Okay, great. You'll just find it over at ThomHartmann.com. Just tell them to go to my website. It's real easy to find. Susan, thank you for the call. Travis in El Dorado, Illinois. Hey, Travis, what's up?
Hi, Tom. How you doing?
I'm great. What's on your mind?
Michael Cohen made that comment yesterday about, Trump literally saying that he can shoot people on Fifth Avenue and get away with it because his supporters will still support him. And I think that, unfortunately, that his supporters would actually support that because Donald Trump fully understands who his constituency is.
Mm-hmm. So
he knows exactly who he's pandering to.
Right. So here's the question. Let's assume that Trump knows that Cohen knows that what Cohen said it was something that he deeply believes. Do you think that if Trump put out the call, let's say he loses the election, and he puts out the call and says, I'm going to stay in the White House. I'm not going to leave and let Bernie Sanders come in or Elizabeth Warren or Cory Booker or whoever it may be. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to let them take over the White House. And I'm calling for, 20,000 armed militiamen to come to Washington, D.C. and form a ring around the White House, for example. Do you think it would happen?
I think that was... I truly believe that would happen. Just look at that guy that went into New York over there to that pizza parlor who believed that, crackpot conspiracy theory nonsense, who was going in there to, quote-unquote, protect the children that weren't even in the basement of a place that didn't have a basement.
Yeah. That's a point. Travis, thank you for the call. This is serious stuff. We'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. Hey, over at ThomHartmann.com, we've got some really cool stuff. A lot of people don't realize that we produce a daily newsletter, and Sue puts we call it Sue's Daily Stack on there, which is literally a link to every story that I've talked about in the show. So all the research is right there. It's free. We don't share or sell our subscriber list. It's there's just it's there. It's there for you. And it's over at ThomHartmann.com. You can sign up for the free newsletter. You also can get my big picture take of the day, which is exclusively over at our website at ThomHartmann.com, as well as links to our videos, the book reports we typically do every day, all this stuff and more. It's all there at ThomHartmann.com. So check it out and sign up for our newsletter. I think you'll really enjoy it and appreciate it and find a lot of value there. We put a lot of work into this stuff. And you'll find it all right there on our website at ThomHartmann.com. And be sure to check out the newsletter and sign up for it. It's great. Welcome back. So, a caller just made the point that I asked the question, if Donald Trump, if he loses the 2020 election, if the Democrats have not been successful in impeaching him, and I consider that even at this point to be pretty unlikely, although one never knows, but you've got to have 2/3 of the Senate voting to impeach. It has never happened in the history of the country, right? So it's not something that's highly likely, shall we say. And so let's say that they don't impeach him and that he makes it to 2020 and he loses the election in November, which I think is also very likely, given his behavior and his popularity ratings and everything else. What happens if he shouts out to the armed militia base, to these sheriff's groups, like we had Sheriff Mack on the other day? I don't know how Sheriff Mack would respond. It'd be an interesting question to put to him, and his friends with the Oath Keepers and groups like that. Or if he just shouts out in general, or it doesn't even do it himself, if it's being done by his proxies, like the people who promoted that pizza parlor in Washington, D.C. conspiracy, where the guy showed up with a rifle and put a bullet through the ceiling looking for those children who were hidden in the basement by Hillary Clinton when there's no basement to the building. I mean, it was a complete hoax. But it had been hyped in right-wing media and across social media in a way that literally caused probably hundreds of thousands of people to believe it was true. And one of them took a gun there. So what happens if Donald Trump says, I need 20,000 armed men to come encircle the White House because I'm not going to leave? What happens if there's basically a call in right-wing media, on Fox News or on right-wing hate radio, or even just exclusively on social media? What if that call is not even orchestrated by the United States? Kim Jong-un's nuclear is getting a lot of attention. Donald Trump just went over and basically, this was one of the biggest diplomatic disasters in the history of the United States. This is why you negotiate agreements in advance, and when the leaders show up, it's basically to sign the deal, shake hands, and make nice with each other. Trump thought he could negotiate with a guy whose family has been negotiating with the United States and the world for like 80 years and always winning or always having things done on their terms. And Trump thought he could beat this guy, this 35-year-old dictator who killed his brother, who killed his uncle, who Otto Warmbier begged on live television. It was a show trial. There's no way that Kim didn't know what was going on. It was a show trial. It was on international television. Please give me my life back. Please forgive me. Please forgive me, Otto Warmbier was saying. And we all watched it on television. And then Kim had his thugs beat him into a coma. And Donald Trump says, well, I believe him. He didn't know anything about it. I mean, that's how pathetic it is. But his followers are still saying, I saw it on TV this morning, they stuck a microphone in one of his followers' faces and said, well, what do you think about that? And the guy said, well, he's trying. Really? No, he's not. He's giving credibility to one of the worst dictators in the world. But my point, where I was going with that, is that while Kim's nuclear weapons are a concern and his huge army, his million-man army is a concern, perhaps a bigger concern is that he's got extraordinary internet capabilities. He's got some of the best hackers in the world. Look what they did to Sony. When Sony released that movie that made fun of Kim, they took down their websites and published the emails of their executives. So what happens if Kim or if China or if Russia or if some other country that's not real happy with us at the moment, Iran, Saudi Arabia, you name it, basically launches what looks like a domestic call for civil war after Trump loses the 2020 election? What happens? Do you think that's even possible? I think, frankly, in the 1850s, the early 1860s, the idea that Americans would take arms up against each other, that brother would shoot brother, was unimaginable to most people. And then it happened. And not just here, by the way. This has happened repeatedly all over the world. Trump says, Michael Cohen says Trump thinks he can do it. Scary stuff.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Is it possible? And if so, how should we respond? It's coming up on 28 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back. Thank you so much. We have a $20,000 match for the day. So whatever you give today will be doubled. If you give $100, it becomes $200. If you give $500, it becomes $1,000, at least for free speech TV purposes. And if you give $10, it becomes $20. And really, there's two ways that you can support free speech TV. One way is by calling and saying, "Hey, here's $100, or here's $50, or here's $12." Whatever you can afford. The other is to call them up and say, "I'd like to become a monthly sustaining member. I would like to support free speech TV every single month on a regular and ongoing basis. And so here's my credit card number, and ding me a certain number of dollars every month. $5, $10, $15, $20, $25, $100 if you can handle it. But whatever is comfortable for you. But literally $5 or $10 every month, knowing that this is going to come in for the next year or two, is very easy for those of us who donate to groups like Free Speech TV, and extraordinarily useful for Free Speech TV in as much as that they can then do budgeting going forward. They can know what's coming in. So these are the two options. If you're giving on a monthly basis and you make your gift today, let's say it's $10 a month for, just put me on as a sustaining member, that $10 becomes $20, but then you'd only see a $10 charge, and then you'll see $10 charges going forward. But only the $10 would be matched. But in any case, as far as I understand it, those are the options to keep Free Speech TV going. And thank you so much for considering that. Free Speech TV is just a really great resource for all of us here. And if you happen to be watching this part of our Free Speech TV program on Facebook Live or on YouTube, just a heads up that Free Speech TV is here if you didn't know about it. It's on Dish Network, it's on DirecTV, on the two big satellite networks. They've got their own channel. Just look for Free Speech TV. And it's also on the internet at freespeech.org. So there's a lot of options there. With a $20 gift, you get the Free Speech TV flag lapel pin. Yes, you too can have a flag lapel pin. With a $60 gift, you get the Free Speech TV set of stickers. This is the 6-sticker design pack. With a $72 gift, you get an autographed copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. It just became available for pre-order on some of the websites, so you can read about it, and you can read the description of it and the blurbs and things if you want over on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, whatever. But it doesn't ship yet. It's not available. You can pre-order it in those places, but you can also pre-order it by making a $72 contribution to Free Speech TV right now, and you'll get an autographed copy. And you'll also probably get it before you'll get it if you buy it on one of the online sites. We're hoping to get some, early print books that we can get out for this thing. But it won't come until, the release date is, I think, June 7th. So it'll be in that neighborhood, plus or minus a week or so of that. With a $100 gift, you get the Free Speech TV t-shirt with the viewer design. With a $200 gift, the Free Speech TV hoodie. With a $360 gift, all of the above. And keep in mind, whatever gift level you're giving, it's going to be doubled today for Free Speech TV by these very generous donors or this very generous donor. With a $500 gift, Louise and I have put together another webinar, this one on resolving fear, anxiety, stress, and trauma, using, how to get through some of these troubled times using, modern techniques and some that go back as far as Franz Anton Mesmer. I mean, there's a lot of great techniques that I've written about in some of my books, but this is going to be a much deeper dive. That's with a $500 gift for an hour-long webinar. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland here, hang out with us in the studio for the last hour of the show, and we'll go have lunch together. And that would be great fun. I look forward to it. I always enjoy it when we have people in the studio and who are our Free Speech TV major donors and often learn things, sometimes bring those things onto the show that I've learned about. So Free Speech TV, needs your help. We're running way behind on our fundraising drive from previous years, from just a year ago. I'm not sure how much of that is because some people have shifted to monthly gifts. If that's the case, thank you. Or if that's because people just can't deal with, or people are overwhelmed by, getting an email every day from I get them from Donald Trump. You're probably getting them from politicians that you'd rather donate to, or other websites or other, media venues or whatever. But that's what's going on out there. The number 877-378-8669. All contributions up to $20,000 are matched today. So today is match day. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Don't forget, with that $72 gift, you'll get a copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, which is literally not even out yet. You'll get it as soon as it's available. 877-378-8669. Thank you so much.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Just a couple of quick news things. Mr. Getz, the congressman, who was trying to intimidate Michael Cohen, Edward Isaac DeVere tweeting, President Trump called Matt Getz last night from Hanoi to talk about the Cohen testimony and the threats Getz made against Cohen. Quote, I was happy to do it for you. You just keep killing it, Getz was heard telling him. Number one. Number two, Benjamin Netanyahu is the prosecutor, the attorney general for the country of Israel, recommended today that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu be indicted for fraud, bribery, and breach of trust. This is from the Washington Post. He and his wife Sarah received gifts worth around $280,000 in exchange for political favors, and then they go through the list of all the political favors. It's pretty eye-popping. And then finally, Nancy Pelosi is taking a hard line against Democrats in the House of Representatives who are voting with Republicans and the so-called moderates. And she's saying, if you don't start voting with the Democrats, the DCCC is not going to be giving you campaign money, and you are not going to win your next primary. And I think that's great. So anyhow, back to our question of, what happens if Trump says, I ain't leaving? Leroy in Washington, D.C. Your thoughts, Leroy?
Hey, love your show.
Thank you.
Wow, this is interesting because my spirit told me when Trump...
Leroy, can you put your mouth closer to the microphone, please?
My spirit told me when Trump became elected, that was the reason why they put him in office, because of the threat of tyranny and killings. And I had intuitively believed that had they not allowed him to be the president, that the militias that would have gone out and started shooting people. Now you see, I think it's too late for that. I think we've seen the dry run. We've seen the killing in the mosque. We've seen the 2 black people got shot in the supermarket. We've seen the young lady getting killed in North Carolina. So the cat is out the bag. So Trump is really
Dylan Roof in the church.
He was surprised that he would actually be elected, and now they have him under control. So it's not even what Trump can do, is that Trump is even threatened. His family is even in danger because the Civil War, this is the chance, the best chance they ever had of trying to get the country back again is when Donald Trump appealed to that faction.
So are you saying, Leroy, that you think that Trump is dancing to the tune of the hard right racists and whatnot, as opposed to them dancing to his tune?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
That makes a lot of sense.
I think the sad part about it is that I think the sad part about the American people is that we're not prepared because we're hoping for a normal, to go back to something old. These people are willing to die before going back. They've tasted the blood. They're in position. They've already stacked the courts. And so, and they're in position now. The recruitment is up. I've driven down South Carolina. The Confederate flag is everywhere. The recruitment is high. And I didn't want to believe it until I heard it. But you know what? I've been calling you for the first time because my intuition was the reason why they gave him the presidency, because if they hadn't, this is what these people would have done. They were poised and ready to go out. So I don't know what we can do, but I think we shouldn't fool ourselves in thinking that the old norm, preparing for an old norm, is dangerous.
Yeah,
that's what I want to say.
Well, and that's an important point. Leroy, thank you very much. Gail in Antelope, California. Hey, Gail, what's up?
Hey, Tom, listen, there's something that's just come to mind as I'm listening to your show. We tend to think of Donald Trump as president, and when we pin that label on him, we expect presidential behavior from him. He's not really president. What he is, if you look at him, he is a cult leader. And you have to look at him as a cult leader, like Hitler was a cult leader. The people that follow him, the more power a cult leader gets, the crazier they get, and the more brainwashed and fervent their followers get. So in terms of will there be a peaceful transition of power if he loses? No, I don't think so, for truth reason. He knows that once he leaves office, even though he has the protection right now of currently not being able to be indicted, once he leaves office, he's going to be facing some heavy criminal penalties, and he knows that. So he is not going to go gentle into that good night. The other thing is if there is that kind of discord, that plays right into Putin's hands and Putin's goal, because his goal is to sow seeds in a dissent in a democracy and try to take it down. So that's going to play into Putin's hands.
And I would say it's not just Putin. I would say that there is an international movement toward essentially violent oligarchy, and all over the world. And all these guys, Duterte, what's the guy in Turkey, Erdogan. They're in fact, Trump, pulled out of Syria because Erdogan called him up and ordered him to. He's got a Trump property in Turkey.
Well, like I said, with cult leaders, the more power they get, the loonier they get.
Yeah, and that is something to worry about.
That explains his behavior to a T.
Yeah, Gail, thank you. I can't dispute that. Larry in Santa Monica. Larry?
Yeah, hey, Tom. Yeah, I'm not as alarmed. I don't think if Trump does refuse to leave, which I don't think he will, but it's possible. This guy, you never know what you're going to get with him. But if he does refuse to leave, I think that there will be some sort of pushback. But, the average Trump voter makes like $70,000 a year. I don't think that kind of person is going to turn out into the street with a gun. And these people, these Confederates and these Southern people, they've always been around. They've always been prone to violence. That's nothing new. And if they do raise their head, they'll be quickly put down.
Yeah, that statistic, though, Larry, I get it that, basically wealthy white people making more than $70,000 a year, massively voted for Donald Trump. And they did it because they knew that if you have a Republican House, Senate, and President, you're going to get a giant tax cut. They were just voting their economic self-interest. But I think that what has happened in the last 2 years is that while he might have lost that cohort, the Republican Party seems to have shrunk by about 5 or 6%. The percentage of people in the Republican Party who love Trump is up to 89% right now. And I think that they are actually the folks who are living economically by their fingernails and across the United States. In many cases, probably who didn't even vote. But those are the people who are wearing the MAGA hats and flying the Confederate flag and walking around with their guns hanging out.
But I still don't think that there are enough of them that would cause a civil war in this country. I don't think that there are. And again, if these people were to raise their head violently, they'd be quickly put down. And it might actually be a good thing because we would actually be able to see who these radicals actually are, and people who don't want to be identified with them that are Republicans will break away, and these people can become marginalized as they have been for the past 40-something years.
Well, and longer than that. That's what George Washington did when he put down the Shays Rebellion and the Whiskey Rebellion. In both cases, these were essentially political rebellions. One was around taxes. The other one I don't recall, but I think it was the same. And in both cases, in one of them, he actually led the soldiers in, as I recall.
These people have been around for a long time. These are the rabble. And Hillary Clinton was correct. These people are deplorable. And again, if they want to be violent, do it at their own peril. Their arms are not long enough to box with God. The government will quickly put them down, and then we can go on about our business. Yeah. So, I'm not that concerned about it.
Okay. Well, from your lips to God's ears, Larry, I hope you're right. Nancy in Elkhart, Indiana. Hey, Nancy, your thoughts?
Yeah,
Yes, hello, Tom. One of the things that when I was listening to Michael Cohen yesterday, the thing that I keep hearing and I keep wondering about, and I think you probably could talk to a lot of the people about, is the Republicans are so worried about him being the liar, which we all know he is. I think they accept the fact about Trump's lying. They accept that. They know it. But why can't our voters understand about his lying about the payoffs to his girlfriends? The Republicans know about that. They don't question whether he had the girlfriends, and look back what they all impeached Clinton for.
Yeah,
simple things like that.
Nancy, they impeached Clinton for being a Democrat. That's.
Thank you.
I mean, that's the bottom line.
Why don't the Democrats why don't they even bring that up?
Well, because they don't have right now. I think if they had control of the Senate and had the kind of majorities in the Senate and the House that the Republicans had during the Gingrich Revolution, they probably would. But right now,
but why don't they even bring it up so the public hears it more? Are they just have our morals? I mean, I'm a Democrat, right, and I'm a progressive. I'm that much more liberal. But I think those Republicans they say, oh, I'm right for life, and I go to church all the time, and I think they could accuse them and say, well, come on, why do you accept that?
One of the groups, but Nancy, one of the groups that is most solidly supportive of Donald Trump right now are white evangelicals.
Yes.
I mean,
and do they talk about that to them though?
Well, no, they've got this whole narrative that he is. Cyrus was the king who was not Jewish but took the Jews in and protected them. And they're literally, the white evangelicals are talking about Donald Trump as King Cyrus. That is a thing, a big thing among white evangelical circles right now. That he may not be a true Christian, but he's at least willing to give lip service to it, and he's going to keep our churches tax exempt, even though they engage in political activity, and he's going to end abortion across the country, and he's going to put women back in their place and put Jesus back into the Constitution. It's scary stuff. Nancy, I got to run, but thank you for the call.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We're going to check in with Talk Media News in about 4 minutes, find out what's going on in the world with Bob Ney, so stick around. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Susie in Vaughan, Washington. Hey, Susie, what's on your mind today? Thanks for listening to KBCS.
Oh, hey, thanks for taking my call. Yeah, I just wanted to say that my brother and I have been talking about this, what happens if scenario with stupid since the beginning, and we fully intend that there probably will be some kind of a clash against each other, but you know what? I'm ready for the fight. He's too repulsive, repugnant, illiterate, and I do believe he's a puppet. He's somebody's puppet because he's not smart enough to come up with these ideas on his own. He's just not.
Interesting.
So anyhow, and that one guy gave me a new perspective as well as feeling that there will be a clash. He gave me a whole new way of thinking that there probably, and he made some good points about there not being a clash because kind of as the, reasons being that they are sort of illiterate, they've been around 1,000 years, they're always causing trouble, but they always get swept back under the carpet, so whatever. But we're ready for the fight.
Yeah, keep in mind, that's what King George III said about George Washington, too, but I get your point, Susie, and I'm ready for the fight. I love it.
Oh, I am.
I love it.
I can't wait.
Okay, I got to move along, but thank you for the call. Don in Jefferson City, Missouri. Hey, Don, what's up?
Well, what concerns me is that since Trump publicly came out and said, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, I'm a nationalist. Not a single office holder, Republican senators, congressmen, challenged him on that. It took the president of France to remind the world what it means when the president of the United States declares that he's a nationalist.
Right.
And nobody picked up on it. And now you see all the Republicans defending Trump and violating all of the Republican norms that they used to abide by for years, you don't even recognize them as Republicans. I think they've all turned to Trump and become nationalists.
And that's the N in Nazi, by the way.
Pardon me?
That is the N in Nazi, the National Socialist Workers' Party.
The Republicans have refuted the allegations that their policies resembled fascist.
Yeah.
But I think now the curtain has been and what I'm going from my experience here in Missouri, I'm hearing that Trumpers, you can't even talk to them. They won't even admit that he's a serial liar. They won't even admit that he doesn't have good morals. They won't even, they just ignore everything. So, and there's a lot of racists.
Well, in many cases, Don, they don't really know what's going on. I mean, there's a marvelous piece in the New York Times yesterday titled "How Conservative Media Covered the Cohen Hearings." And they talked about how in most of the conservative media, and they were looking at Daily Caller and Breitbart and what's the InfoWars, and Fox News. And what they found was that they were all running headlines that Michael Cohen says that I have no evidence of collusion. Donald Trump would never have slapped Melania. I mean, Cohen said a few nice things about Donald Trump yesterday, and that's what made all the headlines in the right-wing media, and they basically are ignoring everything else in the message. So it may just be that they just don't know, although I find that hard to believe, or they do know, but they've, Fox has handed them a ready-made excuse. Don, thank you for the call. Boy, if Lachlan, and I'm forgetting his brother's name, if the two sons of Rupert Murdoch, somebody needs to stage an intervention over there at Fox. Hey, over at ThomHartmann.com, we've got some really cool stuff. A lot of people don't realize that we produce a daily newsletter, and Sue puts we call it Sue's Daily Stack on there, which is literally a link to every story that I've talked about in the show. So all the research is right there. It's free. We don't share or sell our subscriber list. It's it's there. It's there for you, and it's over at ThomHartmann.com. You can sign up for the free newsletter. You also can get my big picture take of the day, which is exclusively over at our website at ThomHartmann.com, as well as links to our videos, the book reports we typically do every day, all this stuff and more. It's all there at ThomHartmann.com. So check it out and sign up for our newsletter. I think you'll really enjoy it and appreciate it and find a lot of value there. We put a lot of work into this stuff, and you'll find it all right there on our website at ThomHartmann.com. And be sure to check out the newsletter and sign up for it. It's great.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Check in with Talk Media News and find out what's up in the world today. On the line with us is Bob Ney, former congressman from Ohio, author of the book Sideswiped. By the way, this program, or this segment, brought to you by goatsfortheoldgoat.com and Ellen Ratner's new book, Loving What You Do. Bob, welcome back.
Well, thank you, Tom.
So, as a former Republican congressman from Ohio, I am curious your take on Michael Cohen's testimony yesterday and your former colleagues, and I'm sure you know some of those people who were, the Republicans in particular, who were responding to him, unless you've got something at the top of the news hit parade that you think we should talk about first.
No, I mean, I've got something if we have any time left with Netanyahu, but I think that, the big story of the day, obviously, I've been talking about all day, is the fact of Cohen up on Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
And he's going to complete with his private meeting with the Senate Intel. But just a couple of takeaways, and then, I've talked to a lot of people on the Hill. I talked to people both sides of the aisle, so it's been fascinating to hear the conversations of what they think. But just on an observation of an interesting point where Cohen, in fact, says, Trump's a scumbag, Trump's a liar, Trump's this, he's a racist, et cetera, et cetera. And then Cohen, of course, spent 10 years with him.
Right.
And then Trump comes back and he says, well, Cohen's a this and he's a that and he's a liar. Of course, Trump spent 10 years with him.
Right.
So the fact remains they spent a decade together. Some people say they deserved each other.
Yeah, lay down with dogs, get up with fleas.
Right. So, I've been there. So, the point, I guess, is that putting, that aside of well, they both belonged in the same barrel, et cetera. They both participated in corruption. I think it was a devastating day, obviously, on Capitol Hill for Donald Trump. Now, there were certain things that, and you're correct. I was listening to your show that Cohen did make some statements that he would never have slapped Melania. So Cohen didn't go to the point where he just said anything he wanted to say. And that gave him, I think, more credibility in the process, Tom, actually, to say, well, wait a minute on this or that. Now, there was one moment, and this was the main story carried by the right-wing media. There was one moment where he wasn't as genuine as he could be, and that's about a White House job, okay? But I think that's neither here nor there. There were two obvious points that stuck out here, I think, big time in a third issue. But the 2 points that stuck out, and if this can be proven, then I think the president has a legal problem and a legal jeopardy. And people can say, well, it's a big issue or it's not, but here's the 2 points, as we know. Number one, the fact that the president has submitted to Robert Mueller, obviously, some statements and some answers to questions that Mueller had. And one of them would center around the fact of what the president was told about, a meeting with Assange or of WikiLeaks, and also about the dump that was to come or not. Now, Cohen, of course, yesterday said there was a speakerphone conversation that he was privy to in which Roger Stone said, here's what happened. He talked to Assange on the phone, et cetera, and the dump is coming. So if that is the case, then the president, if it can be proven, would be liable, obviously, because that's a statement, a deposition of sort with Mueller, then that would be perjury. Right. Which would be comparable to the issue made of Bill Clinton, who had to give a deposition in the Jennifer Flowers case.
Right.
The second is a campaign issue because members of Congress, and the president included, have to fill out a financial disclosure where you state whether you have, you have assets, of course, liabilities, but you state whether you have debt or whether you owe somebody something, which the president did not state that he owed Michael Cohen any form of money, a money payment or a loan, et cetera. Anything due. Of course, Cohen says, and he produced a check that, the president paid him after that issue where the president would have, on his financial disclosure, said that he didn't owe money. That's a second problem.
Right, and in addition to election fraud and transparency fraud, whatever that's called, that could also be tax fraud.
Yes, and the falsification of a federal document.
Right.
That's what that also could be, and I know that issue quite well. So it's falsification of a federal document, of the accuracy or the truth in it. So that's the other issue. The third thing that stood out to me is something you and I have talked about from day one, and that is New York State, where I do believe at the end, whether Mueller feels he can indict or he can't indict, or whether there's an impeachment or a non-impeachment, the second part of this process, and Cohen confirms that he's talked to New York State. And
now, hang on just a second. We hear a lot about the Southern District of New York. That's the federal prosecutor. What about the state attorney general? I think that's Underwood. Am I remembering right? There's a new one?
Yes, there's a new attorney general because there was a scandal with the old one. There's a new attorney general. But New York State has been delving into this for quite a few years. And that's why I mentioned New York State, because there's no question that information provided by Cohen will be and is or has been passed to New York State.
So you're talking about state-level prosecutors, not the Second District of New York.
Absolutely, state level. And I want to mention that because even though that wasn't the topic of the day yesterday, this information, things that were said yesterday, all go to the state of New York. What's the significance of New York State? And I've been preaching about this for months beyond, the emphasis of Mueller and what he'll do or not do, is the fact that, number one, if they indict the Trump family, the children and or the son-in-law, right? Mm-hmm. The president cannot pardon if there would be an indictment and conviction. It has to be in his mind. He cannot pardon anybody out of the state.
If the state does it, right. He can only pardon federal crimes.
Absolutely.
It's fascinating stuff. Fascinating stuff. Bob Ney, and Bob, I've mentioned the Netanyahu thing, so we're good with that. Bob Ney, thanks so much, Bob.
Thank you, Tom.
Good talking with you.
Thank you.
We'll be back. Stick around. Michael Mann is going to be with us to talk climate science.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
We say fight back!
Thank you so much. We have a $20,000 match for the day. So whatever you give today will be doubled. If you give $100, it becomes $200. If you give $500, it becomes $1,000, at least for free speech TV purposes. And if you give $10, it becomes $20. And really, there's two ways that you can support free speech TV. One way is by calling and saying, hey, here's $100, or here's $50, or here's $12, whatever you can afford. The other is to call them up and say, I'd like to become a monthly sustaining member. I would like to support Free Speech TV every single month on a regular and ongoing basis. And so here's my credit card number, and ding me a certain number of dollars every month. $5, $10, $15, $20, $25, $100 if you can handle it. But whatever is comfortable for you. But literally $5 or $10 every month, knowing that this is going to come in for the next year or two, is very easy for those of us who donate to groups like Free Speech TV, and extraordinarily useful for Free Speech TV in as much as that they can then do budgeting going forward. They can know what's coming in. So these are the two options. If you're giving on a monthly basis and you make your gift today, let's say it's $10 a month for, just put me on as a sustaining member, that $10 becomes $20, but then you'd only see a $10 charge, and then you'll see $10 charges going forward. But only the $10 would be matched. But in any case, as far as I understand it, those are the options to keep Free Speech TV going. And thank you so much for considering that. Free Speech TV is just a really great resource for all of us here. And if you happen to be watching this part of our Free Speech TV program on Facebook Live or on YouTube, just a heads up that Free Speech TV is here if you didn't know about it. It's on Dish Network, it's on DirecTV, on the two big satellite networks. They've got their own channel. Just look for Free Speech TV. And it's also on the internet at freespeech.org. So there's a lot of options there. With a $20 gift, you get the Free Speech TV flag lapel pin. Yes, you too can have a flag lapel pin. With a $60 gift, you get the Free Speech TV set of stickers. This is the 6-sticker design pack. With a $72 gift, you get an autographed copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. It just became available for pre-order on some of the websites, so you can read about it and you can read the description of it and the blurbs and things if you want over on Amazon or Book of Barnes & Noble, whatever. But it doesn't ship yet. It's not available. You can pre-order it in those places, but you can also pre-order it by making a $72 contribution to Free Speech TV right now, and you'll get an autographed copy. And you'll also probably get it before you'll get it if you buy it on one of the online sites. We're hoping to get some, early print books that we can get out for this thing. But it won't come until, the release date is, I think, June 7th. So it'll be in that neighborhood, plus or minus a week or so of that. With a $100 gift, you get the Free Speech TV t-shirt with a viewer design. With a $200 gift, the Free Speech TV hoodie. With a $360 gift, all of the above. And keep in mind, whatever gift level you're giving, it's going to be doubled today for Free Speech TV by these very generous donors or this very generous donor. With a $500 gift, Louise and I have put together another webinar, this one on resolving fear, anxiety, stress, and trauma, using, how to get through some of these troubled times using, modern techniques and some that go back as far as Franz Anton Mesmer. I mean, there's a lot of great techniques that I've written about in some of my books, but this is going to be a much deeper dive. That's with a $500 gift for an hour-long webinar. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland here, hang out with us in the studio for the last hour of the show, and we'll go have lunch together. And that would be great fun. I look forward to it. I always enjoy it when we have people in the studio and who are our Free Speech TV major donors and often learn things. Sometimes bring those things onto the show that I've learned about. So Free Speech TV, needs your help. We're running way behind on our fundraising drive from previous years, from just a year ago. I'm not sure how much of that is because some people have shifted to monthly gifts. If that's the case, thank you. Or if that's because people just can't deal with, or people are overwhelmed by, getting an email every day from I get them from Donald Trump. You're probably getting them from politicians that you'd rather donate to, or other websites or other, media venues or whatever. But that's what's going on out there. The number 877-378-8669. All contributions up to $20,000 are matched today. So today is match day. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Don't forget, with that $72 gift, you'll get a copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, which is literally not even out yet. You'll get it as soon as it's available. 877-378-8669. Thank you so much. Hey, over at ThomHartmann.com, we've got some really cool stuff. A lot of people don't realize that we produce a daily newsletter, and Sue puts we call it Sue's Daily Stack on there, which is literally a link to every story that I've talked about in the show. So all the research is right there. It's free. We don't share or sell our subscriber list. It's there's just it's there. It's there for you. And it's over at ThomHartmann.com. You can sign up for the free newsletter. You also can get my big picture take of the day, which is exclusively over at our website at ThomHartmann.com, as well as links to our videos, the book reports we typically do every day, all this stuff and more. It's all there at ThomHartmann.com. So check it out and sign up for our newsletter. I think you'll really enjoy it and appreciate it and find a lot of value there. We put a lot of work into this stuff. And you'll find it all right there on our website at ThomHartmann.com. And be sure to check out the newsletter and sign up for it. It's great.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Serious climate news out there. One report suggesting this from the journal Geophysics Research Letters, that the Arctic Ocean could be ice-free in summers by 2030 at the nearest. What consequences will this have? Another article talking about, we talked about this on the air yesterday and just did a major video about it for our Patreon page, about how if we get to, I think it was 1,200 or 1,400 parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere, the stratocumulus clouds, as I recall, just like they can't hold together anymore, and so the Earth starts warming at a super fast rate. Should we be alarmed? Dr. Michael Mann is on the line with us, Distinguished Professor of Meteorology, the Director of the Earth Systems Science Center at Penn State University, recipient of this year's Tyler Prize for Environmental Achievement, and that's sort of the Nobel Prize for the environment, and the author of several books, The Madhouse Effect, his most recent, The Madhouse Effect, How Climate Change Denial is Threatening Our Planet, Destroying Our Politics, and Driving Us Crazy. His website, michaelmann with 2 N's.net. Dr. Mann, and you can tweet him at Michael E. Mann. Dr. Mann, welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Tom. Always good to be with you.
We have been talking for years, and it seems that every year our conversations become more strident doesn't seem like quite the right word, concerned, worried, whatever. The two issues that I just brought up, can you speak to those?
Sure. This is a mantra of mine that uncertainty isn't our friend. Too often we hear the critics, those who argue against taking action on climate, that there's uncertainty in the science and that somehow that means that we shouldn't take the actions necessary to avert dangerous climate change. But what we're learning and what we see continuing to unfold year after year is that, if anything, uncertainty is cutting against us. We're finding changes that are happening faster and with a greater magnitude than our models, say, 10 or 20 years ago predicted. That having been said, it's also important not to panic. We're not outside of the range of what the models predict, not outside of the range of the sorts of impacts that we have been looking to avert, basing our policies for reducing carbon emissions upon. We're not looking at anything that's outside of the range of what the predictions have said, but what we are seeing is that in many respects, we're coming in at the upper end of that range. You cited two things in particular, the disappearance of sea ice. Now, many of us said years ago that the climate models weren't capturing some of the key processes that allow sea ice in the Arctic to disappear, to fall apart, literally. The models in the past have been fairly crude in the way that they deal with the mechanical properties of sea ice, and that's led to sea ice being too stable in many of the model simulations. And if you look at what's unfolding, the rate at which we're losing sea ice in the Arctic, we are at the upper end of what the models predicted 5 or 10 years ago. We're seeing sea ice disappear faster than the models said it should. Some models said we should continue to have sea ice out to 2100. Some models said, well, maybe we don't get past 2050. What we're seeing is that if we extrapolate the trajectory that we're on, we could see an ice-free Arctic by 2030. And again, it's at the upper end of the range of the models.
What does that do to weather?
Well, the Arctic is sort of our refrigerator here in the Northern Hemisphere. The ice reflects away sunlight, so it helps cool the planet down. And something we've learned is that what happens in the Arctic doesn't stay in the Arctic. It's not like Vegas. When you lose that sea ice in the Arctic and you allow heat to escape from the Arctic Ocean into the atmosphere, that can actually change the properties of the jet stream. And it can change the weather patterns that we see in the U.S. And in fact, more than a decade ago, there was a study that predicted that the loss of Arctic sea ice would lead to worsened drought in California. And we've seen that over the past decade as the jet stream has tended to be steered north of California up to higher latitudes, denying it the rainfall and snow that it typically gets. Of course, now what we're seeing this season is that literally when it rains, it pours. When you don't have that pattern of worsened drought and you do happen to get the storms, the winter storms coming through, a warmer atmosphere holds more moisture. So you get bigger rainfall events and you get bigger snowfall events like what we're seeing in California this winter. So we get more extremes on either side. And those unusual weather patterns are being impacted by the disappearance of ice way up in the Arctic. Again, a reminder that there are surprises in store. There are things that we didn't anticipate that are happening, and these aren't welcome surprises.
Yeah, and what about this loss of, would that be considered albedo effect, the reflectivity of the clouds, if we reach a point where the clouds themselves start falling apart and more of the sun's heat, the sun's light is able to hit the surface of the Earth and warm the planet?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Tom. There is an interesting commonality between these two studies that you cited in that the disappearance of sea ice in the Arctic allows the Arctic Ocean to absorb more incoming sunlight, and so the Earth warms even faster. We call it a positive feedback, but it's not a good thing. It's a bad thing. It's a vicious cycle. The same thing can potentially happen with clouds like these stratocumulus clouds. These are low cloud decks that the main effect is to reflect sunlight back to space, just like the ice does. And so the more of these clouds you have, the more of that incoming heating of the sun, heating by the sun, that the ice can reflect or the clouds can reflect back out to space. And that is a cooling factor that offsets some of the warming from increasing greenhouse gas concentrations. What this one study, and it's important to state some caveats up front, this is just one study using one model. This has not been reaffirmed, validated by other research groups using different modeling approaches. And moreover, they've really looked at a process that is mainly relevant to the tropics, and they've extrapolated that globally. But the global extrapolation may not be appropriate. So some of the conclusions, or at least some of the headlines that resulted from that study, may have overstated the impact that this is likely to have. Maybe an additional warming of 6 to 8 degrees in the tropics, but there's some evidence that we would not see that effect here in middle latitudes or much of the rest of the Earth. And so it wouldn't warm up the whole planet as much as one might have gathered from the headlines. And there's one other really crucial point here. Aside from the fact this is just one simulation, one research group, it hasn't yet been reaffirmed by other researchers, but also they're looking at an effect that only kicks in at 1,200 parts per million CO2 in the atmosphere. The warming that you get from 1,200 parts per million CO2 in the atmosphere. That is more than 4 times pre-industrial levels. If we get anywhere close to that, we're going to have lots of other problems to worry about. So let's hope that we never even get close to the threshold at which this additional effect happens.
Yeah. Apropos of that, am I remembering correctly that after 9/11, when there were 3 or 4 or maybe more days where there was very, very little jet air traffic, and thus a lot fewer of the very, very high, kind of cloud stripes that are caused by the water vapor coming out of the jet engines, turning to ice crystals, that actually altered the temperature of the planet slightly?
Very slightly, and it was I would say a natural experiment, but it wasn't a natural experiment. It was a human-imposed experiment, but it was an experiment that allowed scientists to look at the effect of these contrails, not chemtrails for your listeners, right, which are pseudoscience, and but actual contrails are produced from the moisture that comes out of the back of a jet engine, and that moisture at high altitudes forms clouds, just like rising moisture in the atmosphere forms clouds, and those clouds can have an influence on the absorptive and reflective properties of the atmosphere. Now, these high clouds, these contrails, have the same sort of impact that high cirrus clouds have. They're actually potentially a warming influence. Those low clouds we talked about, those stratus decks, those have a cooling effect because they're very low, and the main effect is the reflection. It's like you painted the surface of the Earth white, or you covered it with ice. But these high clouds, as you alluded to, this water vapor high up in the atmosphere can actually increase the greenhouse effect, so it can have a warming effect. And that experiment that played out for several days in the wake of 9/11 allowed atmospheric scientists, it gave them a control. We could look at the properties of the atmosphere when you didn't have all that air travel and all those contrails, and allowed them to make an estimate of what the effect is. And it's a minor effect. It's way down sort of in the noise compared to what we're talking about, the sort of warming that we're talking about if we don't act on the underlying problem of increasing greenhouse gas concentrations from fossil fuel burning.
We're talking to Dr. Michael Mann, Distinguished Professor of Meteorology and the Director of the Earth Science Systems Center at Penn State University. Dr. Mann, in the minute or so we have left, where are we at right now? I mean, how dire are things? How quickly do we have to act? Do we really just have 11 years left? Where are we at?
Yeah, we would have written a book called Dire Predictions if the predictions aren't dire. If we fail to do anything, then we will be in forever more damaging climate change impacts. We will see even more damaging extreme weather events than what we've seen so far. We'll see even more destructive superstorms, worse drought, worse extreme heat. There's no new normal. Things will continue to get worse and worse if we continue to burn fossil fuels. The good news is there is still time to limit our carbon emissions so that we don't cross some of these truly dangerous thresholds, like a 2-degree Celsius warming of the planet, 3.5-degree Fahrenheit warming of the planet. To avoid warming the planet more than 2 degrees Celsius, we need to bring our carbon emissions down probably by about 5% a year for the next 10 to 12 years if we want to avoid 1.5 degrees Celsius warming. And we're very close to that already. then we have to bring those emissions down even faster, closer to 10% a year. It's still doable. It's not physically impossible. The only obstacle here is political will, is the willingness to take the actions necessary to move away from the damaging impact of burning fossil fuels towards a solution that already exists, renewable energy. We just have to scale it up. We have to incentivize it. We need policies that will lead us down that path.
Yeah, and it's truly extraordinary how the fossil fuel industry and the petrobillionaires have literally captured an entire political party and seemingly some of even our news media. It's just that, this climate denial is insane. Dr. Michael Mann, you are doing God's work, sir. You are just absolutely brilliant.
As are you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So glad to have you on the program. Dr. Mann, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Always a pleasure.
My pleasure. You can check out his website at michaelmann.net. His most recent book, The Madhouse Effect, the winner of the Tyler Prize for Environmental Achievement, this year's essentially the Nobel Prize for the environment. We'll be back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Oh, and you can tweet him at Michael E. Mann, M-A-N-N. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Phil in Sun City, Arizona. Hey, Phil, thanks for watching Free Speech TV. What's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. It's Bill, but...
Oh, Bill, I'm sorry.
That's okay. With regard to an insurrection occurring...
Yeah.
John F. Kennedy told us that there were people trying to acquire power in this nation through covert means. Because he knew the only way that they could operate is in darkness.
Right.
They do not come out into the light. Because their greatest fear is that their neighbors will know who they are and what they stand for. I've never seen anything disappear as fast as a Trump bumper sticker. Have you?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen a Trump bumper sticker.
On my car, I have 3 statements. My Bernie sticker, which I knew I didn't have to take down. And it's a sign that says impeachment on my back window in red, white, and blue.
Mm-hmm.
And a bumper sticker I had made that said, if you believe things that aren't true, you're delusional or Republican.
Good one, Bill.
Now, you would think that, I had to have it made, you would think that people would confront me about those things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm only 5'6". I'm a little bit of nothing. My heart's totally bypassed. I've had 3 strokes. I'm no threat to anybody. Nobody confronts me about any of those things because they're cowards, Tom. They really are cowards. Kennedy was right.
Yeah.
The only way they can operate is through covert means. They need the darkness.
But I would argue, Phil, that the cowards are the most dangerous. Bullies are almost always cowards. In many ways, Hitler was a coward. I mean, doesn't that concern you that? Dylan Roof, I think, was a coward.
No, it doesn't concern me, and the reason is they're ignorant. They're the ignorant that Eisenhower's brother.
Well, they're ignorant of what you and I know, Phil, but they're not ignorant of what they know. What they have a coherent worldview and a belief system that has been given to them that by billionaire Rupert Murdoch that if they follow that, it certainly enhances the situation of billionaires all over the world, and autocrats and oligarchs, which I would argue is what Murdoch is or wants to be, and it's real to them. You can't dismiss this.
It doesn't stand up in the light of truth and in the judgment of our neighbors. Tom, we're all being made more aware now. More aware. The ugly came out. Barack Obama was prejudices come up. And who told us when people show you who they are?
Yeah.
Believe them.
I think that was Maya Angelou.
Maya Angelou, yes. Yeah. But we do know who they are, and we do believe them now. And that is the difference. I feel it in my bones.
Well, I hope you're right, Bill. I really, truly do. And it does, I do have this sense that I know that, huge change is happening right now, and we're on the verge of much larger change. And certainly the changes of the Democratic Party, I think, are indications of that. And, but whether we can do it systemically, whether we can do it nationwide, it's going to be a hell of a challenge, particularly when the Supreme Court said that the billionaires can basically take control of our political process, which they've done ever since basically since the Reagan Revolution. Bill, thanks a lot for the call, and thanks for watching Free Speech TV there in Sun City, Arizona. It's 22 minutes past the hour and change. We'll be right back. Welcome back. 23 minutes past the hour. Jesse in Fort Collins, Colorado. Hey, Jesse, what's up?
Yeah, I just have a question. It's like, why do you always badmouth the white Christians? But I hear you stick up for Muslims and Catholics all the time.
I am a white Christian, Jesse.
Yeah, I've got this thing about white Christians, like you think every single one of them vote for Trump. I'm just kind of curious. That I was going to say, in my opinion, anyways. In my opinion, I don't think that's helping your cause at all, because there's a lot of Christians in this country.
Yeah, I didn't say white Christians, Jesse. I said white evangelicals. And
well, those are Christians.
Many Christians are evangelicals, but specifically the white evangelical movement and its leadership, by the way, insanely corrupt leadership. I mean, you've got Jerry Falwell Jr., who, when you can pull him away from this pool boy that he gave $1 million to and jobs to and flew all over the world with him, is still supportive of Donald Trump. It's just bizarre, this whole thing with the white evangelicals. And that's my issue with them, is that they have tried to aggressively get political.
So your issue's with one guy, but so you generalize them? So
no, it's not one guy. It's with the white evangelical movement. It's not white Christians. As I said, I am a white Christian. There are a lot of white Christian churches, or largely white Christian churches, that are not running these kinds of scams, frankly, that we see coming out of the white evangelical movement.
I mean, don't get me wrong, because I'm Mormon, so I hear a lot of guff from Christians all the time. But I was just kind of wondering, cause, I watch your show a lot. Like, I'll listen to Rush Limbaugh, and then I'll watch your show, because I like to be informed on both sides.
Sounds like whiplash.
So and then I'm just like, it seems like you have this thing against these white Christians. I'm like, why?
No, it's not white Christians. It's white evangelicals. Jesse, perhaps as a Mormon, you can't distinguish. But among the white Christian, or among the Christian churches in general, there's all kinds of denominations and all kinds of groups. And there is this one slice which does not represent the majority of Christians, white or otherwise, in the United States. And that slice is the so-called evangelical movement, the people who have, and there's a core set of beliefs that are associated with the white evangelical movement that are not shared by all the other Christian churches, or with the evangelical movement. And the white evangelicals, the Jerry Falwells, the Pat Robertsons, they're led largely by these television preachers, have by and large thrown in with the Republican Party since the Reagan era. Ronald Reagan's vice president brought in his son to be the liaison to the white evangelical movement in the 1980s. That was George W. Bush. And that's the work that he did for both Ronald Reagan and for his daddy when his daddy was president, was to politicize the white evangelicals. And it worked, and it has stuck. And today, even now, if you drive around and listen to Christian radio, and you're in Fort Collins, I don't know, I don't believe that that's, as large a Mormon community as, say, Salt Lake City, so you can probably get them. They rent time on radio stations, and, if it costs them $100 an hour, if they can, most of what they're doing is, pitch for money. If they can make it $130 an hour, then they keep that going. And you listen to these white evangelicals on the radio, and they're getting political. They're talking about, how wonderful Donald Trump is. And the main issue that Trump has used to seize them is abortion. And again, the white evangelical movement by and large, was in favor of a woman's right to choose right up until the 1970s. I think 78 or 79 was the year it all changed, when it got corrupted. Jesse, thank you for the call.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
We'll be back with more of your calls. What do you think if Trump refuses to leave, like Michael Cohen said? Thank you so much. We have a $20,000 match for the day. So whatever you give today will be doubled. If you give $100, it becomes $200. If you give $500, it becomes $1,000, at least for free speech TV purposes. And, you know, if you give $10, it becomes $20. And really, there's two ways that you can support free speech TV. One way is by calling and saying, hey, here's $100, or here's $50, or here's $12, you know, whatever you can afford. The other is to call them up and say, I'd like to become a monthly sustaining member. I would like to support Free Speech TV every single month on a regular and ongoing basis. And so here's my credit card number, and ding me a certain number of dollars every month. $5, $10, $15, $20, $25, you know, $100 if you can handle it. But, you know, whatever is comfortable for you. But literally $5 or $10 every month, knowing that this is going to come in for the next year or two, is very easy for those of us who donate to groups like Free Speech TV, and extraordinarily useful for Free Speech TV in as much as that they can then do budgeting going forward. They can know what's coming in. So these are the two options. If you're giving on a monthly basis and you make your gift today, let's say it's $10 a month for, you know, just put me on as a sustaining member, that $10 becomes $20, but then you'd only see a $10 charge, and then you'll see $10 charges going forward. But only the $10 would be matched. But in any case, as far as I understand it, those are the options to keep Free Speech TV going. And you know, thank you so much for considering that. Free Speech TV is you know, just a really great resource for all of us here. And if you happen to be watching this part of our Free Speech TV program on Facebook Live or on YouTube, you know, just a heads up that Free Speech TV is here if you didn't know about it. It's on Dish Network, it's on DirecTV, on the two big satellite networks. They've got their own channel. Just look for Free Speech TV. And it's also on the internet at freespeech.org. So there's a lot of options there. With a $20 gift, you get the Free Speech TV flag lapel pin. Yes, you too can have a flag lapel pin. With a $60 gift, you get the Free Speech TV set of stickers. This is the 6-sticker design pack. With a $72 gift, you get an autographed copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. It just became available for pre-order on some of the websites, so you can read about it, and you can read the description of it and the blurbs and things if you want over on Amazon or Book of Barnes & Noble, whatever. But it doesn't ship yet. It's not available. You know, I mean, you can pre-order it in those places, but you can also pre-order it by making a $72 contribution to Free Speech TV right now, and you'll get an autographed copy. And you'll also probably get it before you'll get it if you buy it on one of the online sites. We're hoping to get some, you know, early print books that we can get out for this thing. But it won't come until, you know, the release date is, I think, June 7th. So it'll be in that neighborhood, you know, plus or minus a week or so of that. With a $100 gift, you get the Free Speech TV t-shirt with the viewer design. With a $200 gift, the Free Speech TV hoodie. With a $360 gift, all of the above. And keep in mind, whatever gift level you're giving, it's going to be doubled today for Free Speech TV by these very generous donors or this very generous donor. With a $500 gift, Louise and I have put together another webinar, this one on resolving fear, anxiety, stress, and trauma, using, you know, how to get through some of these troubled times using, you know, modern techniques and some that go back as far as Franz Anton Mesmer. I mean, you know, just there's a lot of great techniques that I've written about in some of my books, but this is going to be a much deeper dive. That's with a $500 gift for an hour-long webinar. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland here, hang out with us in the studio for the last hour of the show, and we'll go have lunch together. And that would be great fun. I look forward to it. I always enjoy it when we have people in the studio and, who are our Free Speech TV major donors and often learn things, sometimes bring those things onto the show that I've learned about. So Free Speech TV, needs your help. We're running way behind on our fundraising drive from previous years, from just a year ago. I'm not sure how much of that is because some people have shifted to monthly gifts. If that's the case, thank you. Or if that's because people just can't deal with, or people are overwhelmed by, getting an email every day from I get them from Donald Trump. You're probably getting them from politicians that you'd rather donate to, or other websites or other, media venues or whatever. But that's what's going on out there. The number 877-378-8669. All contributions up to $20,000 are matched today. So today is match day. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Don't forget, with that $72 gift, you'll get a copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, which is literally not even out yet. You'll get it as soon as it's available. 877-378-8669. Thank you so much.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Thom Hartmann here with you. Kim Jong-un basically eating Donald Trump's lunch, quite literally. Donald Trump left before the lunch that was prepared for them could be eaten. I don't know if Kim sat down and said, hey, look at this spread. I'll eat it now that Donald's gone. But it's absolutely amazing. We've got this guy who is such a lousy negotiator. He declared bankruptcy 6 times. He ruined, probably 50 businesses or more of his own businesses, not to mention other people's businesses. And he's proclaiming he's such a brilliant negotiator, he can just fly over there and work it out with Kim. Right. Elizabeth in West Hollywood, California. Hey, Elizabeth, what's up?
Hi. You're talking about Trump, and my perception, is misspeaking, like saying United States was the beginning of Alzheimer's, and it's only because I've experienced it twice in my life. But I've been watching the show on the A&E channel. It's called Biography, and they've been doing a biography about Trump. And his father died of Alzheimer's.
Yes.
And I think he needs to be evaluated before he's allowed to run for president again.
Don't you think it would be more evident? I mean, I've seen the side-by-side videos of Donald Trump in the 1980s and Donald Trump today, and clearly there's been some cognitive impairment. He repeats himself over and over again and things like that. He's lost some of his capacity. But he doesn't seem to me, my mother died of Alzheimer's. I'm very familiar with how it goes, and it doesn't seem to me like he's anything close to that.
Well, but it's the beginning of it. And should this man have his finger on the nuclear button? Really?
Yeah, I'm more concerned with his foundational mental illness, which he's apparently had since he was a child. This morbid narcissism, this very, very destructive narcissism, and sociopathy. That really, really scares me. Elizabeth, thank you for the call. Charles in Opelika, Florida. Hey, Charles, what's up?
Hey, how you doing, Tom?
Good.
I don't know what to call it yesterday. It was very sickening and sad. I just feel like, why don't we just get on with this impeachment process? I guess I might be rushing it, but if it was Obama or if it was even Bill Clinton, I think the Republicans would be marching on the White House right now.
You mean if they did the things that Trump has done?
Excuse me?
You mean if they had done the things that Trump... I would say if they had done even 1% of the things that Trump has done.
Exactly. And basically it's a double standard, and we don't have to march to the beat of Fox News or right-wing radio. basically we have you and everybody else in the Democratic Party, and I'm just feeling like, what else do we need? What else is going to take for him to ruin this country? I mean, does he have to ruin the economy as well for people to get fed up? I mean, and enough is enough?
Yes, typically that's what does it, Charles. Typically, if the economy is going up when a presidential election happens, the president gets reelected. If the economy is going down when the presidential election happens, the president does not get reelected. Excuse me. So yes, the economy has a lot to do with it, which is why he's leaning so hard on Jay Powell, and why a lot of people are pretty freaked out that this Fed chair. And in fact, we're going to be talking with one of the world's leading economists about this, I believe tomorrow. Is it, or is it next week? It's tomorrow. Yeah. So stay tuned for that.
So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter anymore about just even the look of any impropriety. We've gone from a president like President Obama to straight garbage.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to sit up here and respect it, respect the office, listen to these people that's ruining our lives with all of the stupid policies and the evil stuff that they're doing at the border, separating kids. And I think I learned from you that there are even some of these kids have been abused sexually.
5,000 of them.
I mean, when is enough going to be enough where we cut the plug and say that's it? Because, I mean, I don't think our democracy could stand this. I just really don't. And you have someone like Michael Cohen is saying, that's, even propping up, the discourse among the races. I mean, I'm afraid to think of what else could happen. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I am too, Charles. I absolutely am too. Thank you. Thank you for the call. John in Marne, Michigan. Hey, John, what's up?
Hey, Tom, I'll get on topic, but I liked your comment about Trump and Art of the Deal. I got a question about that. Is why was he just over in Vietnam? Didn't he tell us last time that he met with him that we don't have to worry about nuclear threat from North Korea?
Yes. In fact, he tweeted, and I quote, "There is no longer a nuclear threat from North Korea," end quote. That's what Trump tweeted. It's obviously a lie. Trump, when he first went over there, Kim had an estimated 5 to 10 nuclear weapons. Now they estimate, U.S. intelligence, I mean, Trump doesn't listen to that, but he listens to Fox News. But U.S. intelligence is now saying 25 to 50 nuclear weapons. And all of them would be larger than the Hiroshima bomb.
Yeah, back to the lie again. The reason I called was about the the possibility of the peaceful transition of power in 2020 election.
Right.
I think we're all hopeful that'll happen. With knowing this guy's personality, there's no surprise in it whatsoever. Trump never gave a damn about this country. It was only what the presidency could bring to him and his family. That's what was in it for him.
Certainly seems that way. Yeah. Thank you, John, for the call. Tom in Seal Beach, California. Hey, Tom, what's on your mind today?
Well, I think that a lot of people haven't been approaching climate change with the right mind frame. We're long past being able to decide whether or not we're going to pay for climate change. We're going to pay for it. And our choices now are...
We are right now, Tom. And the insurance industry, paid out, $70 billion last year in additional things that seem to be related just to climate change just in North America?
Well, just a few days ago, there was a viral email or video on the internet of Dianne Feinstein chastising some school kids for supporting the Green New Deal. And her big complaint was that they weren't providing a way to pay for it.
Right.
Well, the people that are doing nothing about climate change are, making us, we're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
We're going to pay for it.
You're absolutely right.
Times over.
Yeah, and we're going to pay for it in multiples of what it would cost to mitigate it right now. If for every dollar that we don't spend now, we're going to have to spend $100, a decade from now, and we're going to have to spend $1,000 2 decades from now. That's how quickly. I mean, it's going up by log scale rather than linear scale. And
also, I'd like to urge your listeners to look into the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. It's H.R. 763, was introduced in the House last month. And it's
by whom?
Got support from both Democrats and Republicans. It'll put a fee on carbon that's totally refundable.
Right.
It'll reduce our carbon emissions by 40%.
Yeah, this is where the price of gas and the price of your, your natural gas, if you heat your house with it, is going to go up. But you're also going to get a check from the government that's equal to roughly the exact same amount.
The average individual will end up about $500 a year ahead after taking into consideration the
right.
increased prices.
Yeah, not to mention that it'll save the planet. This is the mistake that Macron made. He did the carbon tax, but he didn't do the rebate part, and it really upset people. Tom, thank you for the call. Sean in Somerville, South Carolina. Hey, Sean, what's up?
Hey there. I've been listening to you for quite a few years at this point. I would like to go ahead and thank you for continuing to fight the good fight.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir. I know you've in the past also been a supporter of Medicare for All. I'm a beneficiary of the ACA in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for it.
Oh, my.
Yeah, I've had multiple heart surgeries at this point. I'm 30 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to end up kind of echoing the previous caller, the effects of climate change. I'm going to obviously be living through that undoubtedly at this point.
Yeah,
it's unconscionable that they don't do anything about it.
Yeah, it really is, and especially when Europe is doing something about it. I mean, there's a number of European countries that are just way ahead of goals, and actually a few American cities that are way ahead of goals, and I think California as a state is ahead of goals, but of the Paris Agreement goals. But those goals are now considered nothing close to what we've got to do. We've got to move ahead much more rapidly. So, Sean, spot on. Thank you for the call. I wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much, and I wish you well, sir.
Thank you very much. And saved by the ACA. It's amazing. I mean, people call up and say, literally, Barack Obama and the Democrats in the House and Senate saved this guy's life. Saved his life. Think about that for a minute. I mean, that's really a high calling in politics.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And then you look at the Republicans, and they're not interested in saving anybody's lives. They just want to be toadies for the gun industry and the fossil fuel industry and make as much money as they can. And welcome back, David in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Hey, David, what's on your mind today?
Hi, welcome from the land of the 900-foot Jesus.
900-foot Jesus?
Yeah, Oral Roberts.
Oh.
Back in the 70s. If God was going to take him back, if he didn't get $35 million.
That's right. Did he get the money?
Oh, yeah.
And he built the Jesus?
He built the city, the skyscraper in the Oral Roberts University.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. It's. I wanted to also remind you something that you haven't mentioned. You forgot. Molly Ivins said the Republicans, they don't want to govern; they want to rule. And that's the absolute truth.
Yes.
And this whole thing is to get rid of the New Deal. They want to get rid of the New Deal. They want to get rid of Great Society. They don't have anything to replace it with.
Right.
There's no ideas there. They just want to.
Well, they don't think there should be a replacement. They believe that the purpose of government should be to run the military and the police, and that's it.
And they don't have any patience with studies. They don't want to do pilot programs. They don't want to get consensus. They want to rule by decree. They want to say, this is the way it is. We know better than you do, and that's that.
Yep. By the way, the Senate just confirmed Wheeler as the head of the EPA, so we now have I believe he was a coal industry lobbyist, either coal or oil.
I'm sorry. Well, this is the lad Scott Pruitt who was suing the EPA. Instead of going after the bankers.
Right.
It's so funny that they're so criminal conscious when they talk about people that are undocumented.
Yeah.
But they have no problem with bankers and stuff. I mean, Kevin Stitt, our governor, he was one of the worst mortgage people. Now we've got guns. Everybody can have a gun now.
Right. Yeah. No, it's
all I'm waiting for is them to legalize dueling.
Yeah. Well, that might be the stand your ground laws. David, I need to move along, but thank you for the call. Gene in Gurneville, California. Am I saying it right, Gene?
Yeah.
What's up?
Yeah, you got it. Oh, boy, I love your show.
Thank you.
Well, seems like the theme is the love of money is the root of all evil. And that goes back to the Cohen testimony the other day and good old AOC.
Yeah.
She really nailed him. And the thing I would like to see furthered up on is the stuff that's leading to the Russian mafia connections of Trump.
Right.
Trump was fined in 2015, before the election, by FinCEN, $10 million for money laundering at the Taj Mahal. What scares me now is you hear how he's messing up with his appointments to different federal agencies.
Right.
I'm hearing that he's messing with FinCEN personnel.
Of course.
And at Treasury. Now, that scares the living daylights out of me, because whatever those guys at FinCEN know, and stuff, that's like the NSA of the Treasury.
What is FinCEN?
FinCEN is the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network.
Ah.
So okay. FINCEN, capital C, capital E, capital N, but right. FINCEN. So if you Google up FinCEN Taj Mahal, you're going to come up with that article.
Right.
And right up. And then in addition to that, before the election, the Australians denied Trump a casino license years ago.
Right, because of his mob connections. Yeah.
Yes.
I remember that. Gene, good stories that need to be brought up. Should have been brought up yesterday, frankly. Good stuff. Gene, thank you very much for the call. And I'll have to Google FinCEN here. We'll be back, or DuckDuckGo it, actually. We'll be right back. Hey, over at ThomHartmann.com, we've got some really cool stuff. A lot of people don't realize that we produce a daily newsletter, and Sue puts we call it Sue's Daily Stack on there, which is literally a link to every story that I've talked about in the show. So all the research is right there. It's free. We don't share or sell our subscriber list. It's there's just it's there. It's there for you. And it's over at ThomHartmann.com. You can sign up for the free newsletter. You also can get my big picture take of the day, which is exclusively over at our website at ThomHartmann.com, as well as links to our videos, the book reports we typically do every day, all this stuff and more. It's all there at ThomHartmann.com. So check it out and sign up for our newsletter. I think you'll really enjoy it and appreciate it and find a lot of value there. We put a lot of work into this stuff. And you'll find it all right there on our website at ThomHartmann.com. And be sure to check out the newsletter and sign up for it. It's great.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Oh, welcome back. RJ in Greenville, Michigan, listening on 1680 AM. Hey, RJ, what's up?
Hey, Tom, good to hear from you, and good to hear your voice on the radio every day.
Thank you.
Did I hear you say at one time you were a former member of the NRA?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. And they drove me away back during Clinton with all the lunatic speech. But, you know, the minute that I heard that the NRA was involved with the Russians, I knew we could be in trouble. And I dare say, you know, I don't have real hard evidence of this or hard membership rolls or anything, but I dare say that the vast majority of members in the NRA are either former or current members of our armed forces. And this leads me to believe that we never should have allowed for a volunteer army.
Well, I've always felt that a draft is a good thing because it creates diversity in the military, and that's not just racial diversity, but economic diversity, geographic diversity. Right now, the military is very, very heavily tilted toward people from the South and people from very low socioeconomic status, and so you're getting a certain level of homogeneity that is, in my opinion, dangerous, destructive.
You know, I didn't believe for a long time, I didn't believe we should have the draft just because, you know, of what my brothers...
Oh, I protested against the draft when I was 17.
Now I'm a firm believer, and we should have the draft because, you know, it's the only way that we can, that the members of the armed forces and the population can actually say, no, enough is enough.
Yeah.
And what I'm a little afraid of is that, like you're saying, if there is an insurrection, Mr. Trump already has a little voluntary lunatic army.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This could get ugly. It really could.
Well, you're hearing those kind of predictions
of
from some of these guys on the right. I mean, they're actually using the phrase civil war now more and more.
Right,
I mean,
right. And you know, the more they start speaking in those terms, I'm afraid with them, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you know what I mean. You know, they tend to believe one another, and they don't believe in any logic, any truth. It's their reality or nothing. And that's what really scares me. And I hope we can find a way to diffuse this situation somehow.
Well, and there's a cult within that movement that most people are unaware of. Tim McVeigh is probably the best example just because of how many people he killed. And he had read this book called The Turner Diaries, which was written back in the 70s. And it's become this cult novel for these guys. And in fact, you know, I encourage people to read it. It's really quite
It's scary.
Pardon?
It's scary.
Yeah. So you're familiar with the book, RJ?
I read it.
Yeah, and
I actually had a neighbor give it to me.
Yeah. Well, that tells you a lot.
6 boys, and all of them are being trained right now as we speak in using automatic weapons. I mean, semi-automatic weapons.
Well, for people who don't know what we're talking about, RJ, in the Turner Diaries, basically the narrative of the story is that this guy, the hero of the book, blows up the federal building in Oklahoma City. This causes the federal government to overreact to his act of domestic terrorism and clamp down and say, okay, that's it, no more guns in the United States. And the police departments are ordered to start going door to door and getting guns. And meanwhile, there was another piece to it that had to do with race. That the white people, the good white gun owners, basically rose up. Correct me if I'm wrong here, RJ. It's been 20 years since I read the book. Rose up against the people of color, against Jews, against Catholics, and against the police forces. Basically, took down the federal government. Killed off, everybody that, that list that I just described, and these white evangelical Christians were the only ones that were left, and with this noble country, right? That was the end of the Turner Diaries, and that's what Tim McVeigh thought he was going to create.
Yeah. I mean, this is what these people believe, and I live in an area absolutely surrounded by the lunatic fringe.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's damn scary stuff. It's very scary stuff.
How much Klan activity? How much?
RJ, I grew up in Michigan.
You kind of know that.
I had friends in high school who were whose fathers were parts of the Michigan militia. RJ, I want to get one more call in here before the end of the show. So thank you for the call, Russ in Portland, Oregon. Hey, Russ, your thoughts on the peaceful transition?
I just wanted to say, Tom, I'm glad to hear you talking the way you're talking about the very real possibility that we could have civil war in this country. Back in 2016, my girlfriend directed me to a blog written by the son of a childhood friend of hers, and he was basically saying, you liberals had better vote for Donald Trump, or we're going to bring civil war down on your heads. And if I may mention something here, if people want to get an inside look at what's going on, there's a book that was published in 2018 called Chosen Country, A Rebellion in the West by James Pogue. Very talented young millennial gentleman who wrote this book. He infiltrated the redneck Mormons who took over the Malheur Wildlife Refuge. Mm-hmm. And that, if you read that book, and this is extremely well written, it is not hard to read, you will get an idea what's going on in this country. And like you said about the military, if these people do make a move on the liberals, etc., and I'm talking about these rednecks and these Christo-fascists, as I call them, they're the ones. Also, Michelle Goldberg's book, Kingdom Coming, is another one that people need to read.
Yeah, Russ, I got to bail here, but thank you. Noted. fact, I saw Sean writing down those titles and authors. Thank you. Thanks so much for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place, with, more great radio. And in the meantime, don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires all of us. That means you. So please get out there, get active, tag, you're it. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great afternoon.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.